Chapter 11:27. Su Yu's eyes were full of killing intent. In this world, there was no law enforcer who was completely righteous. As a law enforcer of the Sunluo law enforcer, he seized the cavern world with the fiery bright staff. What was the difference between him and the evildoers? Swish! The three young men at the bow of the ship sneered and flew down with the strength of mortal fairies. One of them walked towards Su Yu. He didn't look like a human being because of the vague shadow of green wings on his back. Is he a demon? Su Yu thought to himself. Clang! The young mortal fairy took out a pair of shackles from the storage space and threw them at Su Yu's feet. Then he looked at the other two places and said indifferently, "Handcuff yourself. Don't make me do it." In his opinion, a strong man of stage one of all creations was not worthy of being treated seriously at all. Suddenly, a gust of wind blew towards him. The young mortal fairy reacted very quickly. Before he turned his head, he had already thrown out his palm to block the man who was attacking him. When he turned his head and looked at the attacker, he was slightly surprised. What? How dare you attack me? It was quite surprising that a stage 1 all creations dared to attack a strong man of mortal fairy. With a hideous smile on his face, a strand of mortal fairy's strength rushed out of his palm. He was going to destroy Su Yu's palm. However, when they collided, his palm was suddenly covered with a layer of golden scales. Then, a strand of terrifying golden power gushed out from his palm. His tiny bit of mortal fairy's strength dispersed like clouds and mist. The golden beam penetrated his palm, crushed his arm, and rushed out from his shoulder blade. If he hadn't reacted in time, his head would have been pierced by this force. Even so, his entire right arm was crippled from then on. As the followers of He Xianran, although they were not members of the Sunluo law enforcer, they had carried out many dangerous tasks. So, they reacted quickly. His remaining left hand tore the space behind him. Then, he stepped on the ground and disappeared into the void. Then, he teleported to a safe place. At this time, he healed his arm by using the mortal fairy's strength. During this process, his eyes were fixed on Su Yu, which showed his extremely rich combat experience. The carelessness on his face disappeared completely. Then, he stared at Su Yu's arm, which was covered with scales, and said calmly, "Did you implant the real spirit dragon veins in your body? I was too careless. However, this is the end." Shwar, the young mortal fairy, moved like a phantom and appeared in front of Su Yu instantly. Then, he pointed his finger at Su Yu. This finger contained 70% of the mortal fairy's strength. He had chosen to use all his strength to suppress Su Yu quickly. Moreover, all of the power was concentrated on a single point. Unless the point was missed, once hit, even if one did not die, they would be heavily injured. Su Yu's face was calm and he replied indifferently, "To Dragon's body." Even when facing the Central Prefecture's king, he didn't use too much of the power of the real spirit dragon veins, because in a battle at that level, the dragon power would be enhanced by his cultivation, and the power of one dragon was enough. Now that his cultivation had fallen back to the Wanxiang realm, there was a need for him to unleash the power of the 9 dragons' body. Under the twin dragon body, 2 thick golden veins appeared on Su Yu's arms. He channeled the strength in his arms into his fist and punched out like a flood dragon. With a muffled sound, the young mortal fairy's expression changed. He took a few steps back to stop himself from retreating. "Your real spirit dragon veins are extraordinary." The young mortal fairy found he had underestimated Su Yu. "Fine, it's been a long time since I've used my full strength." The young mortal fairy shook his sore fingers and took a light breath. The mortal fairy's strength in his body was rolling like boiling water. The young mortal fairy's aura changed completely. He growled in a low voice, "Demon subduing ring." All of a sudden, all the mortal fairy's strength was condensed into a ring of light in his palm, which was imprinted on Su Yu's chest. Su Yu was still calm, and he said indifferently, 3 dragons' body." At this moment, the huge golden dragon veins on his chest suddenly shone, and a yellow light beam shot out from his chest. At the same time, Suyu punched out with both of his fists. The two light beams merged with the light beam on his chest, and condensed into a huge light beam as thick as a neck. Then, the light beam shot straight out. The light beam condensed by the mortal fairy's strength was smashed into pieces. Mortal fairy Qingyu was shocked. What kind of dragon veins did you transplant? Even the transplanted peak mortal fairy dragon veins shouldn't be so powerful. He didn't know these dragon veins came from a prospective deity, divine dragon. Suyu didn't answer. Instead, he murmured in a low voice, "For dragon's body." Suddenly, a golden light burst out from his right leg. 4 golden light beams shot out at the same time and hit the chest of the young mortal fairy fiercely. Although he used the mortal fairy's strength to resist in time, he was still smashed by the remaining light beam, and his chest was smashed into pieces. Suyu didn't show any mercy. He took a step forward and smashed the young mortal fairy into pieces with his palms. Only the soul of the young mortal fairy escaped quickly. Xianran, who was walking into the cabin, raised her eyebrows slightly. What? She withdrew half of her body from the cabin, turned around and looked out of the ship coldly. Staring at Suyu, her pretty face was a little angry. Her man was beaten by a junior of all creations, and only his soul was left? What are you waiting for? She was surprised. The remaining 3 young mortal fairies on the bow got off the ship one after another. Seeing this, God Kailan's face changed slightly. Miss Mo, Suyu is in danger. Mo Tianxian said calmly, "Don't worry, he won't die." As she said this, she forced back the 2 young mortal fairies, who were close to God Kailan and herself with a sword. Somehow, with Mo Tianxuan's strength, it was easy for her to kill the 2 young mortal fairies. However, she didn't use any killing moves. The 2 mortal fairies who didn't notice this at all thought the cold and arrogant woman in black in front of them was too weak. At the same time, 3 young mortal fairies rushed towards Suyu. Although they were all mortal fairies, Suyu was no longer a peak mortal fairy. 5 dragons' body open. 6 dragons' body open. 7 dragons' body open. Suyu opened the 7 dragons' body. His whole body was shining with golden light, and a stream of dragon power was rolling in his meridians. The 3 strong mortal fairies didn't dare to be careless, and all of them tried their best. They cooperated well. 2 of them attacked from the left and right side, and the other one attacked from a distance with a crossbow, which was a low-grade fairy artifact. 7 light beams shot out from Suyu's body at the same time. 3 of them shot towards the mortal fairies in the distance, and the other 4 attacked the 2 people who were close to him on both sides. Bang! It was not difficult for the young mortal fairies on both sides to deal with the 2 light beams when they tried their best. After destroying the light beams, they attacked Suyu's vital parts fiercely. It seemed they didn't want to leave Suyu alive. However, the corners of Suyu's mouth revealed a cold smile. 9 dragons, devil subduing art. Suyu shouted in a low voice. Suddenly, a formation with complicated patterns appeared above the head of the young mortal fairy on the left side. It was as large as 10,000 feet. In the formation, an aura that could even make the mortal fairies tremble came out. Hearing the roar of the dragon, everyone's heart skipped a beat. Then, a pitch-black light flashed in the formation, and the young mortal fairy under the formation disappeared. In the place where he stood, there was a huge demonic dragon which was hundreds of feet thick and tens of thousands of feet long. The size of this demonic dragon was much larger than before. Above its neck, there were 9 demonic dragons' heads. As for the young mortal fairy, he was torn into pieces by the 9 heads of the demonic dragons. Even his soul was not left behind. He was eaten directly. Suyu was also stunned. In the past, the demonic dragon was condensed by the demonic energy, but the demonic dragon in front of him seemed to be a living creature. The 9-headed demonic dragon of the demon realm. Are you a demon? Xianran squinted her eyes, which were full of dangerous light. Even Su Yu couldn't understand why the last level of this magic art could summon the 9-headed demonic dragon of the demon realm directly. He couldn't help but think of Yun Yazi's words. This magic art was not as simple as Su Yu thought. However, it was not the time to think about this. The young mortal fairy on the right side was stunned for a moment, and then he attacked Su Yu with gritted teeth. Su Yu snorted coldly. Then, he grabbed with his right palm, and 9 pitch-black scorching suns surrounded Su Yu's arm. As he patted with his right palm, 9 pitch-black scorching suns suddenly appeared. Puff! The young mortal fairy didn't even have time to scream before he was turned into ashes. After killing 2 mortal fairies, Su Yu's murderous intention didn't diminish. He teleported to the front of the mortal fairy. He was trying his best to resolve the 3 light beams. When he saw Su Yu killed 2 mortal fairies in a row like a god of slaughter, he was so scared that his heart shrank. Then, he stepped back and said, "Lady Xianran, help me!" Su Yu snorted coldly. Then, 7 light beams were shot out from his body. The 7 light beams combined into a golden light beam which was 5 feet thick. Then, it penetrated the young mortal fairy. When the young mortal fairy was about to be killed, a ray of white light flashed. Xianran, who was standing on the bow of the ship, lifted her white feather cloak. Then, she appeared in front of the young mortal fairy like a graceful white crane. She stretched out her arms like crane feathers and waved them up and down. Vaguely, it seemed that a pair of white crane wings were flapping. When the wings were flapping, a more magnificent mortal fairy's strength, which was controlled by the wings, rushed towards the light beam which was about 5 feet high. This mortal fairy's strength was not very strong. However, under the control of the wings, it constantly disintegrated the light beam as if it had a strong restraint on the light beam. At the same time, the wave-like mortal fairy's strength continued to move towards Su Yu. When Su Yu tried to resolve it, he realized the mystery of it. Before the first layer of mortal fairy's strength was resolved, the subsequent mortal fairy's strength was overlaid, and then overlaid again, until the mortal fairy's strength couldn't bear the overlaid mortal fairy's strength. He fell down in the infinite mortal fairy's strength. To deal with this move, the only way was to break through the mortal fairy's strength before the mortal fairy's strength was overlaid. 8 Dragon's body. Open! Su Yu shouted in a low voice. Then, his left eye turned into a golden light. However, this was not enough. 9 Dragon's body. Open! Suddenly, Su Yu's right eye was also covered by a golden light. The 9 great dragon veins hidden in his body were all opened. All of a sudden, Su Yu was like a golden figure. He shouted and 9 light beams were shot out from his body at the same time. Chapter 11:28. Bang! With a deafening sound, Xianran's strength of mortal fairy was penetrated by the light beam and hit on her chest. Xianran was knocked back by the light beam. Her pretty face was full of horror. As a Stage 2 mortal fairy, she couldn't defeat a Stage 1 all creations. She couldn't believe it if she didn't try it herself. Let's go! Xianran turned around and jumped onto the ship. The young mortal fairies who were fighting also returned to the ship. Tianxian didn't chase them. It seemed she was afraid of something. Su Yu didn't chase them either because they had more important things to do. The ship of the All-Access Chamber of Commerce was coming. They could hear the loud horn sound from afar, which was informing the passengers who were going to board the ship to get ready. God Kylan also said, "Forget it. After all, she is the descendant of the crane deity. The crane deity won't let her go if she is killed." God Kylan opened his mouth and took out the ship ticket and the world of the martial arts tower. He said, "Get ready to board the ship. Miss Mo and I will enter your 9 jade spiritual pearl." However, a white light flashed by before he finished his words. It was so fast that Tianxian, who was a Stage 3 mortal fairy, couldn't react in time. She shouted and waved her sword. At the same time, she grabbed something in the void with her right hand. With a groan, several white feathers which were stained with red and golden blood fell to the ground. On the bow of the ship, Xianran covered her right arm which was bleeding. However, she sneered. In her right arm, she grabbed a palm-sized living thing. It was none other than God Kylan. God Kylan was taken away by her. More importantly, the ship ticket was still in his hand. Xianran stared at Emotianxian with fear. When she looked at the martial arts tower in Emotianxuan's hand, her face darkened. She used the magical power of the crane deity to take away God Kylan in a flash. Originally, she planned to take away God Kylan along with the martial arts tower and the ship ticket. However, this woman in black hid her cultivation of Stage 3 Mortal Fairy. Not only did she hurt her, but she also took back the world of the martial arts tower. Xianran stared at them coldly. She had no intention of exchanging the sacred Kylan for the world of martial arts tower. She ordered, "Set sail quickly and inform the nearest Sunluo law enforcing team. They don't have tickets, so they can't leave the Nine Regions cavern world." She didn't want to give them a chance to live at all. Instead, she wanted to gather her strength and capture them all in one fell swoop. What a vicious woman! There was no enmity between them, so he had to kill them. He and Emotianxian could only watch helplessly as the ship left, but they could not set foot on it. This was because the dire beasts had appeared again after the ship left. Without tickets, they could only sit and wait for death, waiting for Xianran to find helpers to annihilate them in one fell swoop. A cold gleam flashed across Emotianxuan's eyes and she said coldly, "The crane deity? You raised such a good daughter." Suyu raised his brows. "Do you have a way to overtake them?" "No," Emotianxian said angrily. She sat cross-legged on the ground, looking as if she was waiting for them to come and fight them with all her might. Suyu was disappointed. Although Emotianxian was powerful, she had exposed her cultivation at the last moment. So, how could the enemy give them another chance? Moreover, he didn't know what happened to the sacred Kylan. Although the sacred Kylan was taken away suddenly, Suyu still clearly saw that the sacred Kylan threw down the world of the martial arts tower at the moment of being taken away, so that Emotianxian could take back the world of the martial arts tower. The Jiuzhou continent was the sacred Kylan's lifelong effort. He would rather his last celestial energy sphere be taken away than the Jiuzhou continent in the martial arts tower. Sacred Kylan. Suyu was worried. As a deity of the Jiuzhou continent, he still cared about the Jiuzhou continent after his death. Because of his persistence, Suyu couldn't stand by and watch him die. The longer it was in the hands of the enemy, the more dangerous the situation would be for the sacred Kylan. He had to find a way to find Xianran as soon as possible. However, without tickets they could not even leave the Jiuzhou continent. Woo! The horn of the giant ship was getting closer, and they could already vaguely see a giant merchant ship slowly sailing towards them. The size of the merchant ship was more than 100 times that of Xianran's ship. Looking from afar, it seemed that a city was flying towards them. The ship was coming, but they didn't have tickets to board it. If they couldn't feel the aura of the ticket, the giant ship would pass by the Jiuzhou continent and never stop. Hearing the horn gradually getting farther away, Suyu's mind was filled with thoughts. Tickets, tickets. Suddenly, a flash of lightning flashed in Suyu's mind. He took out a picture scroll from the 9 jade spiritual pearl excitedly. After unfolding it, he was surprised to see that it was a beautiful woman. The picture scroll was very old, but it couldn't conceal the aura of the scroll itself. Emotianxian glared at him. What can this picture do? It's not a ticket, however. As soon as she finished speaking, the horn of the merchant ship that was gradually getting farther away came back. A huge black shadow stepped through the layers of fog and approached them slowly. It was a merchant ship that was entirely white jade, and the words "All Access" were engraved on the ship. From the ship, a rope ladder as long as 10,000 feet fell straight in front of Suyu. Mo Tianxian stared at the picture scroll in Su Yu's palm in astonishment. How could this be a ticket? How could he summon the merchant ship successfully? Get into the 9 jade spiritual pearl. After putting Mo Tianxian into the pearl, Su Yu boarded the giant merchant ship along the ladder immediately. At the entrance of the ladder, 2 mortal fairies were guarding it. After glancing at Su Yu expressionlessly, they took back the ladder and didn't check the ticket. The giant ship had a formation that could detect the ticket. Therefore, it was not necessary to check the authenticity of the ticket. If they were in a bad mood, they would check the ticket. If they were in a good mood, they wouldn't bother to check the ticket. After all, there had never been a fake ticket. Su Yu let out a sigh of relief secretly. If he really checked the ticket, this picture scroll of Xia Jingyu was really inexplicable. When the sacred Kailan took out the ticket and showed it to Su Yu, he felt the aura of the ticket was quite familiar. It wasn't until a moment ago that he suddenly remembered that Xia Jingyu's painting was emitting the same aura as hers. This scroll was obtained by the 3rd Deputy Region Master of the Heavenly Knife region in the Far West region by chance. Why did it emit the aura of the all-access merchant ship ticket? According to the sacred Kailan, the most important reason why the ticket couldn't be copied was that a special material was mixed in the ticket. Did this strange aura happen to exist in the picture scroll? There were many people on the deck of the giant ship. It was not convenient for Su Yu to study it on the spot. So, he walked into the cabin without looking sideways. There were many vacant lounges in the cabin, which could be used for free. Su Yu chose a slightly spacious lounge. After entering the lounge, Su Yu released Mo Tianxian immediately. How much do you know about this ship? Su Yu asked directly. Mo Tianxian glanced at Su Yu. She knew this was not the time to argue with him. So, she said, this ship will go to the Great Eastern Alliance. It should arrive in 6 months. Su Yu's eyes lit up. If they catch up with us, will the owner of this ship hand us over? Mo Tianxian nodded without hesitation. Yes. The Sunluo Law Enforcing Team has the privilege to rule over all living beings. If they want to hand us over, the all-access merchant ship won't refuse. Su Yu asked again. So, is there anything on this ship that the Sunluo Law Enforcing Team has no right to interfere with? Mo Tianxian was stunned a bit. Then, she said, except for people, the Sunluo Law Enforcing Team has no right to interfere with anything. The merchant ship is the link between the Great Eastern Alliance and the Star River. It is very important. Even deities dare not let their descendants disturb it. Therefore, except for people on the ship, the Sunluo Law Enforcing Team has no right to deal with the ship and other things. If they violate this rule, they will be disqualified from being a member of the Sunluo Law Enforcing Team immediately. Is that so? Su Yu was lost in thought. 1 month later, in the land of the far west of the Jiuzhou world, He Xianran returned. In addition to her, there were 2 ships following behind her, one big and one small. On the small ship, Meng Ku and the middle-aged man in linen were standing. On the big ship, another Sunluo Law Enforcing Team was standing with his subordinate. He was a short and fat man in his 20s. He was very ugly. There was a sarcoma on his forehead. Because of the pressure of the sarcoma, his left eyelid had to be closed. Only his right eye could be used. He looked like a one-eyed man. However, his cultivation was exceptional. He had the cultivation of a 3rd-stage mortal fairy. The middle-aged man in linen was at the stage 4 mortal fairy level. He Xianran at the stage 2 mortal fairy level, and 7 or 8 subordinates at the stage 1 mortal fairy level. Where are they? He Xianran tried to sense the surroundings. However, she couldn't sense their aura at all in the land of the far west. The one-eyed man said in a hoarse voice, Fairy He, are you sure they don't have tickets? He Xianran nodded her head and said, I have searched the soul of God Kailan. There is only one ticket which was taken away by me. Moreover, there is no other divine bone ship that can cross the Star River in Jiuzhou. Looking at the broken void, He Xianran's eyes lit up. She said, "Send out all the subordinates to search the whole Jojo world. I guess they are hiding in the void." Swish, 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 swish. 7 or 8 figures flew away. He Xianran, the one-eyed man, and the middle-aged man in linen were still on the ship. The one-eyed man praised, "Fairy He, you are very smart. You are very good at catching the snake by cuddling the grass. If your subordinates alert them, they will probably seize our ship and escape. However, they don't know that everything is within our expectation. We are just waiting for them." "You flatter me, Master Jing. How can a small trick like this be noticed by you?" He Xianran was in awe and fear of this man. Not only was he ranked 70th in the Sunluo law enforcing team, but more importantly, his father was also one of the top 50 deities in the Great Eastern Alliance. He Xianran's father, the Crane deity, usually relied on young Master Jing's father, the Jing deity. Therefore, she had to be polite to him. "You flatter me. Fairy He is exceptionally intelligent, and I've admired you for a long time." As he spoke, the one-eyed man got closer and sniffed Fairy He's fragrance. He said intoxicatedly, "Why don't you do me a favor? After this matter is over, you and I can find a quiet place to drink wine and admire the moon. How about that?" Chapter 11:29. But it was only a matter of time. Thinking that she was going to marry such a greedy, lustful, and ugly man, He Xianran suddenly felt that it would be great if he died. Suddenly, a scream came from the void far away. A subordinate of stage 1 mortal fairy was killed. "They are coming." He Xianran became serious. The one-eyed dragon's expression changed from casual to serious. He squinted his eyes and said, "The 2 people you mentioned seem to be quite powerful. One of them is a 3rd realm mortal fairy, and the other is just an all-creation realm mortal fairy, but he can fight evenly with you, a 2nd realm mortal fairy." Before he finished his words, another scream came. "They are coming toward us!" The one-eyed man said, "I haven't seen such a reckless guy for a long time. How dare he fight against the Sunluo law enforcing team?" He Xianran was also on guard. She shouted, "Song Tie, you can handle the stage 3 mortal fairy woman, and the all-creation realm guy can be handled by me and Mr. Jing." The middle-aged man in linen was Song Tie, a law enforcement captain of a deity. He was also recruited by the Sunluo law enforcing team to deal with Mo Tianxian. Unlike them, Song Tie stared at the vast void and frowned, "Lord Envoys, I feel that there's something fishy about this. If they want to seize our ship, why did they kill the law enforcers who entered it? Wouldn't it be better for them to sneak around those law enforcers and attack us?" What he said was reasonable. He Xianran and the one-eyed man also felt that something was wrong. Just as they were guessing, a beautiful woman with white hair, purple lips, and red eyes suddenly stepped through the pitch-black void like a nightmare, sneering coldly as she walked over. There was blood at the corner of her mouth. Seeing this woman, Song Tie, He Xianran, and the one-eyed man recognized her immediately. "Demon!" The 3 of them were shocked. Thank you for sending me 2 mortal fairies tonics. Otherwise, I am afraid I can't defeat you." With the help of the hearts and souls of the 2 mortal fairies, the glittering jewel mortal fairy recovered more than half of her strength. Song Tie flew over and shouted, "Demon, how dare you be so arrogant in the territory of the human race?" As a stage 4 mortal fairy, Song Tie's combat power was honed through years of fighting with the demon clan. The glittering jewel mortal fairy didn't dare to be careless. After a few rounds, the glittering jewel mortal fairy only had a slight upper hand, but she couldn't do anything to Song Tie. "Get out of the way!" the glittering jewel mortal fairy scolded. Then, she struck her palm and pushed him back. She then flew toward the 3 divine bone ships. If she continued to be entangled here, it would obviously be disadvantageous to her. If another team of enforcers came, it would be extremely difficult for her to leave. "Oh no, she's going to steal the divine bone ship." Song Tie steadied himself and immediately rushed over. The glittering jewel mortal fairy had already jumped onto the ship that belonged to He Xianran. Without even looking at her, she raised her palm and was about to kill her. How could He Xianran block the attack of a peak mortal fairy? However, Song Tie could not save him in time. At the critical moment, the beautiful eyes of He Xianran flashed a trace of ruthlessness. Unexpectedly, she grabbed the one-eyed dragon, who had hurriedly dodged, and put him in front of her. Due to the activation of the crane deity's bloodline, the one-eyed dragon didn't even have time to react, and was quickly pulled to his chest, barely blocking the palm that should have killed He Xianran. Puff! The one-eyed dragon's eyes darkened. He didn't even have a chance to resist, and his soul was smashed into pieces. When the glittering jewel mortal fairy was about to kill He Xianran again, Song Tie had already rushed over. The glittering jewel mortal fairy had to give up. She waved her sleeve and pushed He Xianran off the stage. Then, she started the warship and sailed into the Star River immediately. Song Tie rushed over, but it was too late. He turned back to check on the one-eyed dragon, and was shocked to find that He Xianran had pushed his body into the Star River, where it was devoured by the wild beasts. Fairy he you! Looking at the woman in front of him, Song Tie's eyes were full of viciousness. Even as a man, he felt a chill down his spine. He Xianran regained her elegance and elegance. Then, she said indifferently, on the 4th day of the 10th month of the 3500th year of the Alliance calendar, in the 9-Dragon Cave world, several creatures of the 9 provinces killed the enforcers without permission and resisted the investigation of the Sunluo law enforcer. In the chaos, Envoy Jing was killed, and 2 suspects escaped. Now, they are asking for reinforcements from the Alliance. Hearing that, Song Tie couldn't help but gasp. This woman is really vicious. After discussing with Mo Tianxian, Su Yu decided to save the sacred Kailan with a careful plan. If they were careless, they would not only fail to save the sacred Kailan, but also get themselves killed. Now, the world of the martial arts tower was in their hands. If He Xianran wanted to get the martial arts tower, she wouldn't kill the sacred Kailan easily. On the deck of the merchant ship, Su Yu looked at the Star River in the distance. In the Star River, most of the areas were buried in the darkness. They were cold and gloomy. Except for the ferocious wild beasts, there were no other creatures. Occasionally, in a very distant place, a flicker of starlight could be seen, and a star was emitting a faint light quietly. Now, Su Yu knew that it was not a star, but a world of cavern. Most of them were abandoned. With the continuous improvement of the deity's cultivation, more and more cavern worlds would be created. The old cavern worlds would be abandoned after being moved away, just like the cavern worlds of the Jiuzhou continent. For millions of years, it was unknown how many cavern worlds had been abandoned. They floated in the galaxy, not destroyed and not extinguished, accumulating more and more. Over time, they became existences like stars, giving a faint light to the gloomy galaxy of the universe. Standing in the Star River, Su Yu had an indescribable feeling. He felt that a single creature was as small as a speck of dust in the vast world. Woo-woo! Suddenly, a loud whistle came from the merchant ship. Su Yu was no stranger to this. In the past 2 months, he would stop in a cavern world once a month. In the past 2 months, Su Yu learned from the crew that in another 10 years, the route of the Jiuzhou continent would be cancelled, just like those gradually abandoned stars. The cavern world that he stopped in was similar in size to the Jiuzhou continent, but it was very dim. To judge the prosperity of a cavern world, it could be easily judged from its appearance. The more abundant the celestial source origin of the cavern world, the brighter it would be in the dark Star River, and vice versa. As the merchant ship approached, the smell of blood came from it. The mortal fairy crew standing on both sides of the ladder braced themselves to prevent any unexpected creatures from boarding the ship. The merchant ship had only one entrance, which was the ladder. The rest of the directions were protected by the deities. unless the deities boarded the ship by force. However, the deities could cross the Star River with their bodies. Why would they need to use the divine bone ship? The smell of blood also drifted into Su Yu's ears, which made him frown slightly. Most of the blood was from the human clan, but there was also some smell of the demon clan. Not only the Jojo continent had the demon clan, but other cavern worlds also had the demon clan. Alas, another cavern world ruined by the demon clan. Is this the cavern world of the mountain god that died 3,000 years ago? It was destroyed after all. The old mortal fairy with a soft mouth sighed. Well, recently, more and more abandoned cavern worlds have been massacred by the Devil Clan. Their actions have become more frequent, and the consequences are worrying. Traveling with the merchant ship all the way, their experience was far better than ordinary people, and they had seen many similar scenes. Clatter! Suddenly, at the exit of the cavern world, a large number of people rushed in like a tide. Behind them, a flock of black crows were chasing them. They were full of demon energy and looked far more ferocious than real crows. These were the unique demon crows of the demon realm. They were cruel and bloodthirsty, fast, and extremely difficult to deal with. Among them, there was a huge demon crow of the fourth realm of the mortal fairy, which was even more ferocious. It was shrouded in black flames, and its power was monstrous. The faces of the two mortal fairies at the mouth of the soft ladder changed. Black crows of the peak mortal fairy, hiss, the demon clan that drove them, their cultivation must be even stronger, right? The demon crows were exceptionally unruly and only surrendered to the stronger ones. There must be a very powerful existence behind this group of demon crows. The group of fleeing humans fought and retreated, and one of them, a rather young human, caught Su Yu's attention. He fought the demon crow king alone with a hammer. Often with a sweep of the hammer, a large number of demon crows of the mortal fairy realm turned into flying ashes. If he had not resisted, the demon crows would have rushed up like a tide and killed all of them. Get on the ship immediately! The young man with the hammer did not look back. He shouted while fighting the demon crows like a god of war. The surviving humans took out their tickets and asked to board the ship. There were not many of them, only 200 or 300 left, and each of them had a good cultivation. The highest was the mortal fairy realm, and the weakest was the almighty realm. They were the last creatures in this deserted cavern world. The soft ladder was lowered, and they boarded the ship one after another. However, the young man with the hammer was alone, and a large number of demon crows tore through the defense line and attacked. The humans who had no time to board the ship died one after another. The strong mortal fairies on both sides of the soft ladder could not bear it, but they were indifferent. Their mission was to guard the entrance of the merchant ship, and they were not allowed to leave. However, the old man of the mortal fairy realm, seeing that his companions had fallen one after another, shook his torn sleeves and gave up boarding the ship. He turned around and fought with the group of demon crows. You go first. I will block them. The old mortal fairy showed a resolute look, and ran the strength of the mortal fairy, and fought with the demon crows. However, among the demon crows, there were several demon crows of the mortal fairy realm, and there were many demon crows of the peak of all creations. How could the old mortal fairy be their opponent? Soon, he was surrounded, and there were more wounds on his body. The strength of the mortal fairy was rapidly consumed by the demon crows. In a moment, he would be torn apart and eaten by the demon crows. At the same time, the demon crows that were not blocked rushed to the people who had no time to board the ship. For a moment, screams were heard. Although they tried their best to resist, they were no match for the demon crows. Su Yu sighed secretly. If the sacred Kylon had not sealed the entrance of the cavern world before he died, the creatures of Jojo would have been destroyed by the demon clan or some other forces on a certain day in thousands of years. Seniors, if I get off the ship to help, can I return to the ship again? Su Yu asked. He did not have a ticket. If he could not come back after getting off the ship, it would be terrible. Chapter 1130. Trouble? Not really. Su Yu touched his nose, flashed, and jumped off the boat in front of the two dust fairies. As soon as Su Yu made his move, the golden light shone brightly, slaughtering the all creations level demonic crows. One of the dust fairy realm demonic crows that besieged the dust fairy old man was directly swept by 3 golden lights and died on the spot. Then, it was the great sun punishment fairy picture. 9 dark scorching suns were like millstones, sweeping across the land, and the demonic crows were burned. As a highly intelligent demonic crow, it immediately escaped cunningly. The humans besieging the ladder were suddenly saved. Many people cast grateful eyes, but when they saw Su Yu's cultivation, they were stunned, just like the 2 dust fairies on the boat. Wait, all creation's first layer? Go up. Su Yu stared at the black mass of demonic crows in front of him, stepping on the corpses of the demonic crows on the ground. Without looking back, he rushed to the dust fairy old man. Under the body of the 9 dragons, these demonic crows were all killed. The dust fairy old man was overjoyed and retreated to Su Yu's side before bowing. "Thank you, Senior, for saving my life. I can't repay you." When he looked up and confirmed Su Yu's cultivation, he was stunned on the spot. He thought it was a great senior on the boat who came to help, but how could it be in all creation's first layer? While he was stunned, Su Yu had already rushed to the front line. The hammer-wielding teenager was fierce, but he was also deeply surrounded. The king of the demonic crows made it difficult for him to get out quickly, and he fell deeper and deeper into the encirclement. If this continues, even without the king of the demonic crows, the ordinary demonic crows can also kill him. With a thought, 3 heavenly orchid silver bamboo swords flew out of the sword box behind Su Yu. Now that his cultivation has reached the all creations realm, the realm of the soul has also followed a big step forward. Using the 3 suns sword formation again, the consumption of the soul is like a drop in the ocean. "Brother, don't be obsessed with fighting, get out of here quickly." Su Yu's loud voice penetrated the crows, and the 3 heavenly orchid silver bamboo swords entered the void and quickly set up a formation around the demonic crow king in the center. At the same time, Su Yu rushed into the demonic crows and opened a bloody path. The hammer-wielding youth had already sensed that he was in danger, but he had no one to help him, so he couldn't get away. Just when he was feeling anxious, Su Yu suddenly attacked him. A passage was opened behind him. As for the demonic crow king, suddenly there was a muffled sound. The demonic crow king suddenly screamed fiercely, and 3 bloody holes flashed across its body. At this moment, the 3 silver swords slowly appeared. The hammer-wielding youth's eyes lit up and he couldn't help but praise, "Good sword. It's sharp and contains the power of the void. It's rare in the cavern world." Taking advantage of the moment when the demon crow king was injured, the hammer-wielding teenager, like a phantom, quickly withdrew from the encirclement and grinned at Su Yu. "Thank you for your help, I am Yang Tai." Su Yu nodded calmly, then retreated back to the ladder and boarded the ship as if nothing had happened. Yang Tai took the initiative to talk to Su Yu, but Su Yu gave him a cold look. He couldn't help but feel embarrassed. He touched his nose and said with a smile, "This lad isn't a member of the Alliance, is he? I don't even know him." With a smile, Yang Tai took the hammer and went to the battlefield. It wasn't until they saw his face that the 2 dust fairies were shocked. They were about to salute, but Yang Tai waved his hand and stopped them. "Come on, why are you saluting? Is this young master not embarrassed enough?" The foreheads of the 2 dust fairies broke out in a cold sweat, and they became timid. "Well, the passenger who attacked is an outsider. Take care of him when you get ashore. Stage 1 all creations, hee. Yang Tai's expression was strange. "Yes, young master." The 2 dust fairies did not dare to breathe, and they were quite regretful. If they had known that the young master was here to perform a task, they would have shown off their skills regardless of their own safety. However, they did not dare to be careless about the young master's orders. After killing the demonic crow king, Su Yu returned to the cabin as if nothing had happened. He was unfamiliar with the place, and he did not want to talk too much with strangers, so as not to expose unnecessary information. After all, he was followed by the Sunluo law enforcement team. There were still 4 months before they arrived at the Alliance. If the Sunluo law enforcement team wanted to catch up with them, it would take at least more than 2 months. He should use this time to practice well, so that he could have a chance to rescue God Kylan. With a thought, a mysterious formation appeared above Su Yu's head, and a finger-sized snake came out of it. It was full of demonic energy. It was a creature that only existed in the demonic dimension. The 9 Dragons' devil-subduing art is really wonderful. In the end, it became a summoning technique. After 2 months of exploration, Su Yu found that the patterns that appeared after the 9th level of the 9 Dragons' devil-subduing art could be used to control the strength of the summoned creatures through his will. If it was strong, the 9-headed demonic dragon could come immediately. If it was weak, it would be like the little snake in front of him. They were all alive, and after appearing for an hour, they would be summoned back by the formation. It seems that this demonic art created by the demonic Buddha of the human race should be false. Most likely, he got this demonic art by accident, but claimed that it was created by himself. Su Yu played with the little snake for a while and put it back. After that, Su Yu moved his mind and took out the green stone slab. The 3rd realm of the heavens, sun gazing at air, the illusionary soul realm, has been practiced for a period of time. Now that he has broken through the all creations, his soul power has skyrocketed, and he should be able to practice it to the realm of great success. After saying that, Su Yu immediately fell into meditation. In the blink of an eye, 2 months had passed. The all-access merchant ship was sailing calmly in the silent Xing River as usual. During this period, Yang Tai and the Dust Fairy Old Man came to visit, but because of the retreat they could not see each other. On this day, a big ship came from the depths of the Xing River, riding the wind and waves. The size of the ship was not much inferior to the merchant ship. On both sides of the hull, there were hundreds of dust fairies in neat clothes. On the bow of the ship, there were 2 young people with more powerful cultivation, a man and a woman, and there were 200 people. Among them, the leader of 100 people was Tsang Tie, and the leader of the other 100 people was a shriveled old man. His eyes were looking around, but he did not dare to look at He Xianran in front of him. Her cultivation was also at the 4th realm of the Dust Fairy. The 200 people were all at the 1st realm of the Dust Fairy and the 2nd realm of the Dust Fairy, and Meng Ku was among them. The woman was He Xianran, and the man was a strong man at the 3rd realm of the Dust Fairy with a cold expression. The death of the one-eyed dragon, the son of the Jing deity, caused a wave in the Alliance, like throwing a stone into a calm lake, splashing a burst of ripples. Since the establishment of the Alliance, within the jurisdiction of the Alliance, there have been Sunluo law enforcers who died, such as the attack of the demon race. But this time, he did not die in the hands of the demon race, but in the hands of the human race. His death angered the dignity of the Sunluo law enforcers. What angered the Jing deity even more? There were not many descendants of the Jing deity, and the most complete inheritance of his bloodline was Jing Bai. For Jing Bai, the Jing deity cultivated him as an heir to the throne. Unexpectedly, he was killed by the human race while performing a task in Jiuzhou. Therefore, before the Sunluo law enforcement team responded, the Jing deity had ordered the law enforcement team belonging to the Jing deity to be transferred to He Xianran and ordered her to assist in the arrest of the murderer. On the way, they met the Sunluo law enforcement team, the young man, Xiao Xian. Xiao Xian's ranking in the Sunluo law enforcement team is higher than that of Jing Bai. His strength is not weak. There are few opponents in the 3rd realm of the Dust Fairy. With the blood of the gods' descendants, he can even fight against the strong man who has just entered the 4th realm of the Dust Fairy. In this way, a huge force was condensed, and in 3 months, Yang Fan caught up with the all-access merchant ship that passed by Jiuzhou that day. The Sunluo law enforcement team is here. The merchant ship is stopped for inspection. The faces of the two old dust fairies changed slightly, and they looked at the two Sunluo law enforcement team aggressively. They could not help but look at each other and immediately rushed back to the cabin. "Young master, the Sunluo law enforcement team is here. Why don't you come out and let them go?" Yang Tai was in the cabin and said lazily, "I don't care about them." "Well, stop the ship and let them inspect it. The Sunluo law enforcement team will not do anything without a purpose." After receiving the order, the merchant ship gradually stopped. The Sunluo law enforcement team's giant ship also approached. 200 law enforcers entered in a single file and surrounded the merchant ship from the front and back. The Sunluo law enforcement team is arresting the suspect. First, inform all the people who boarded the ship to stand on the deck and accept the investigation. Second, get the enthronement account book. We want to check the list of people who got off the ship along the way. With such a request, the merchant ship naturally cooperated. It didn't take long for the people and the account book to arrive. There is no record of disembarkation on the account book, so he must still be on the ship. Xianran narrowed her eyes and glanced coldly at more than 300 people. She glanced around, but there was no Su Yu and Mo Tianxian. She also found someone who was proficient in the eye secret method, but she did not find anyone who disguised himself. Law enforcement officers, check all the cabins. After they checked for a week, they found nothing. "Where is he?" Xianran frowned and said, "Mr. Xiao, this person is cunning. I am afraid that he expected that we would chase him, and has come up with some way to hide." Xiao Xian stared at Xianran and said coldly, "I hope everything you said is true." With this stare, Xianran felt guilty, but she forced herself to be calm. Jing Bai's death is indeed related to them, I can confirm it. They must be on the ship. If it was someone else, why couldn't they be found alive or dead? They were obviously on the ship, but they couldn't be found. Xianran might not even know where they were hiding. However, knowing that Su Yu controlled the world of the martial arts tower, wouldn't it be easy for him to hide like this? As long as Su Yu also hid in the world of the martial arts tower, he would disappear without a trace. Therefore, when she found the martial arts tower, she found Su Yu. However, Xianran did not dare to mention the existence of the martial arts tower. On the one hand, she coveted the martial arts tower, and on the other hand, she did not dare to let Su Yu be caught by Xiao Xian. Otherwise, if he exposed himself during the interrogation, the biggest suspect would be Xianran. Once the Jing deity was angry, even the crane deity could not withstand the pressure. Therefore, she had to be careful. She had to get the martial arts tower quietly and kill Su Yu in advance. Chapter 1131. The people on the deck all opened their magic weapons, but none of them were cavern worlds. How precious cavern worlds are! By no means ordinary people can have them. Xianran pointed to the cabin below and said, "We hope to check the cargo in the cabin to make sure there is no cavern world inside." However, the two mortal fairies objected indifferently. "If you are willing to remove the identity of the Sunluo law enforcement team, you can try to check it by force. The merchant ship, including the cargo on board, is not allowed to be inspected without the consent of the ship owner. Otherwise, the Sunluo law enforcement team will be fired." Xianran was not angry and said, "Okay, we will abide by the rules, let's go." Before Xiao Xian left, he looked at the cabin and saw a special secret room. This secret room was used by the captain and outsiders were not allowed to enter. However, the captain had been summoned to the deck, but there seemed to be someone in the secret room. The only thing that the law enforcers did not check was this door. "Who is inside? Why don't you open the door?" Xiao Xian came over and said coldly. Xianran's heart skipped a beat. Is it possible that Su Yu is hiding in the secret room? If he is caught by Xiao Xian, the two mortal fairies said lightly, "Lord Xiao, it's better not to know, he doesn't want to see you." Oh, in front of the Sunluo law enforcement team, who has such a big face. Except for the gods, who can disobey? Xiao Xian said coldly. Squeak, with a soft sound, the door of the secret room opened, and a lazy voice came. Well, I am not a god, and naturally I can't disobey you. If you want to check, come in. This voice. Xiao Xian and He Xianran, even Song Tie and the old man, were confused at the same time. This voice seems very familiar. Xiao Xian was puzzled and glanced inside. With just one glance, Xiao Xian and He Xianran's faces changed dramatically. Behind them, Song Tie and the old man, as well as more than 200 subordinates, all knelt down. Song Tie of the Law Enforcement Team greets Lord Yang. Du Long of the Law Enforcement Team greets Lord Yang. The Law Enforcement Team has a high status and only outsiders kneel to them, but they are kneeling to Yang Tai at this moment. Even Xiao Xian's face was filled with deep awe. He bowed and said, Greetings, Senior Yang Tai. He Xianran also gracefully bowed, smiled sweetly, and looked at Yang Tai affectionately. I am He Xianran, greeting Senior Brother Yang Tai. There was only one possibility for the law enforcement team, and even the two Sunluo law enforcement team members to be so respectful. Law enforcer. Whether it was the ordinary law enforcement team or the Sunluo law enforcement team, there were as many as thousands of people. In addition to the attendants of each law enforcement team, the attendants' and the attendants' subordinates, the seemingly simple law enforcement team had more than 100,000 people. It was more than 1 million. With such a large number of people, how could there not be a unified management system for assigning tasks, distributing items, and recording information? The organization that managed the law enforcement team was called the Alliance Hall. There were 9 law enforcers who were in charge of the affairs of the law enforcement team. Among the 9 law enforcers, 6 of them were prospective gods, and they were the ones in charge. The remaining 3 would be chosen from the Sunluo law enforcement team. The 3 with the strongest cultivation would be chosen as law enforcers to represent them in the Alliance Hall. The 3 of them usually did not manage actual affairs, but with their names hanging there, who dared to look down on them? If they really had any requests and pleaded in front of the 6 prospective deities, how could the prospective deities not do them a favor? Therefore, the status of the 3 of them was even more noble, and no one was willing to offend them. Yang Tai was the 3rd-ranked strongman of the Sunluo law enforcement team. With his cultivation and strength, it was difficult to find an opponent in the same realm. Except for the 2nd and the first 2, among the descendants of the contemporary gods, he was the strongest. Since you are here, go in and check. Yang Tai squinted at Xiao Xian and Crane Fairy Ran, and the 2 of them complained. How dare they search the bedroom of the law enforcer? Crane Fairy Ran said, If only Brother Yang Tai was on the ship, I would not have come. With Brother Yang Tai here, the rascals would have fled long ago. In her words there was an excuse for herself, but also a compliment, and this smile had to be said as gorgeous as a flower, beautiful and pleasant. But in the eyes of Yang Tai, it was like air, and he waved his hand casually. If there is nothing, go. Crane Fairy Ran was secretly disappointed. Yang Tai was a big figure in the alliance. His own strength and status were one thing. The most important thing was that his father, the all-access merchant god, was a rich and powerful figure in the alliance. A quarter of the alliance's wealth was in the hands of the all-access merchant god. If you only think that the all-access merchant god is really a big-bellied, deceitful businessman, then you are wrong. To be able to control such an invincible business empire, if there is no strength to shock the galaxy, how can he live to this day? He has long been attacked by hundreds of gods, and his property has been divided up. The all-access merchant god himself was unparalleled, and he ranked in the top 3 of the Alliance's 100 gods. Among the gods at the bottom, there were 10 who became gods with the support of the all-access merchant god. When they saw him, they had to pay their respects to him. The ordinary families of the gods also completely rely on the business empire of the all-access merchant god to survive. Not to mention anything else, as long as the business route is cut off, it is enough to isolate the other cavern world in the alliance. His status was transcendent and no one could compare. Therefore, Yang Tai was simply the best son-in-law in the eyes of many women who were descendants of the gods. Marrying into the family of the all-access merchant god was tantamount to soaring into the sky and becoming a god. However, Yang Tai himself was a blockhead. In addition to fighting and killing, he was not very interested in women and the like. At least, Xianran could not arouse his interest. But she understood very well that as the descendant of the all-access merchant god, how could Yang Tai be as dull as he looked? The other side of Yang Tai was an extremely intelligent person that was skilled in scheming and had a terrifyingly meticulous mind. She'd faintly heard her father mention that Yang Tai was a terrifyingly intelligent junior, and in terms of strategy, he was only superior to her father, Baotong deity. In desperation, Xianran could only retreat with Xiao Xian. When the law enforcement ship left, Yang Tai said calmly, "Investigate what happened in the Jiuzhou cavern world. In addition, find out who was on board." Yes. The two dust fairies respectfully retreated. 2 months later, the ship arrived at the Great Eastern Alliance. Standing on the ship and looking into the distance, one could see a sea of dazzling light in front of them. One after another, the cave mansions of the aristocratic families were shining with dazzling light. They were very close to each other and clustered together, illuminating the entire dark galaxy like an inextinguishable holy land of light. This was the Milky Way that was seen when looking up at the sky on the Jiuzhou continent. A river-like wonder of the cavern world was formed by hundreds of cavern worlds. If you look closely, you will find that each cavern world is closely connected. The world barrier between them has been opened, and they are all connected as one. Standing in the starry sky, you can clearly see the boundless expanse of the divine land. A huge merchant ship, as huge as the Jiuzhou cavern world, came in and out of the divine land. The merchant ship that Suyu was riding on was like a small boat compared to a giant ship. The merchant ship docked, and the cargo in the cabin was removed one after another, and it was constantly transported in all directions. On the shore, hundreds of law enforcement officers hidden in the dark were closely watching the movement of the goods. Every time a batch of goods was transported away, a law enforcement officer quietly followed, and his eyes never left the goods. Somewhere in the tavern, Crane Divinity's mouth curved into a frosty arc, like a cat catching a mouse, full of playfulness. "Can you escape from the palm of my hand?" She had long expected that Suyu would put the Marshal Tower in a certain cargo, and he would hide in the Marshal Tower, so that he could avoid the search of the law enforcement officers and successfully arrive at the Alliance continent. Standing behind her respectfully was the shriveled old man. "Dulong, is everything done?" Crane Divinity said coldly. Dulong said, "Miss, rest assured, everything is done. These law enforcement officers and attendants are personally trained by me, they are loyal to the Crane deity, and will never leak the news. We will definitely dare to kill the 2 people of Jiuzhou and take the Marshal Tower before the Sunluo law enforcement team." Crane Divinity flashed coldly. "Those who witnessed me killing Jing by that day, have you dealt with them?" Dulong said, "Miss, please rest assured, they can't say anything, but there is one person who is a little tricky." "You mean, Songtie?" Crane Divinity's face was cold, as if there was a thorn in her heart. "Exactly, he belongs to the book deity, and he is the captain of the law enforcement team formed by the book deity, and his strength is extremely high. If we can't kill him, and he escapes, we will have offended the Jing deity, and another book deity." Crane Divinity said coldly, "I know, so he should be killed. The book deity is an upright person, and has always been known as the god of gentlemen. Once he knows, he will definitely uphold justice for Jing Baixing." After saying that, Crane Divinity took out a bottle of pitch-black powder. "This is the poison researched by the poison deity. It is more than enough to kill him." Poison deity? Dulong's face trembled a little. Although he was called Dulong, in front of the god who was proficient in poison, how could he dare to boast about it? However, with this bottle of pitch-black powder, Song Tie could not escape. A month later, a batch of goods shipped to the world of the pen deity arrived. This batch of goods was ordered by a small shop. When he opened it happily and took out a large number of materials for refining elixirs, he found an unprepossessing bronze tower. It was the shop assistant who opened it. He didn't care and put it aside first. When he put the materials into the warehouse and returned, he was shocked to find that the martial tower had disappeared. In the bustling market, Suyu couldn't help but sigh. The cavern world of the Great Eastern Alliance runs through one place, so the spirit energy emitted by the veins of the various worlds is evenly distributed in all areas. Any of these Alliance cavern worlds is far more prosperous than Jojo. Therefore, the prosperity of the spirit energy makes Suyu, who comes from Jojo, feel like a country bumpkin entering a city. Chapter 1132. The passers-by were not surprised and got along with each other in harmony. Suyu was surprised. After all, it was the alliance of 100 gods, not only the human race, but also the integration of all races. Because among the 100 gods, most of the gods were not human, but alien races, it was common for them to create more alien creatures. Like God Kylan, who did not create Kylan but created the human race, it was rare. Just as Suyu was walking in the downtown, he suddenly felt a vague breath behind him, and he couldn't help but smile slightly. Sure enough, it is coming. Whoosh! Suyu's figure flashed and disappeared in the nearest alley, leaving a faint breath in the air. The man who chased after him was shocked and immediately crushed the jade pendant, and he followed closely. This pursuit lasted for 2 whole months. He did not immediately catch up, but chose to follow Suyu secretly. Wherever Suyu went, he followed closely, and every time he went, he crushed a piece of jade pendant. In this way, he followed Suyu across the entire cavern world of the Brush God and came to the deeper part of the Alliance, the Water God world. More than 99% of the Water God world is an underwater world, and all creatures live in the water. The water here is relatively special. Even if other creatures enter the water, they can breathe freely, walk, and practice. Except for a little discomfort, there is not much harm. Suyu walked in the water world with curiosity, and he saw strange mermaids everywhere. There were men and women, old and thin, beautiful and ugly, and of course, there were many humans among them. The world is so big. After leaving a water city, Suyu walked on the outskirts and couldn't help but sigh. Then do you think that although the world is big, there is nothing strange or not coincidental, the savage of Jojo? A cold voice came coldly. Whoosh! A void split, accompanied by the backflow of seawater. A delicate figure came out of it. Then, space cracks appeared around Suyu, and no less than 100 strong people of the Dust Fairy realm came out. Hundreds of strong people of the Dust Fairy realm came, but the skinny old man was nowhere to be seen. Is it a coincidence? You sent someone to follow me for so long, and then pretend to meet me here? Miss He Xianran's bad taste. As a country person, I admire you. You city people know how to play. Suyu smiled lightly. He Xianran didn't care and smiled coldly. I admire you very much. How can you still laugh now? Do you think I will only catch you for the martial tower? She did not mean to negotiate with Suyu. The situation has changed. I would rather take your life than the martial arts tower. Crane Deity said coldly, Kill him! As soon as the order was given, hundreds of strong men of the mortal fairy realm surrounded Suyu in layers of inner and outer layers of outer layers. First get rid of future troubles, and then look for the martial arts tower. He Xianran knew very well what she should do. Do you want to attack me? Suyu looked around. He Xianran snorted disdainfully. Do you still need to pay attention to fairness in a battle of life and death? He Xianran said with a smile. You fairy, I are by she by you, I and bye 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 bye, I and bye 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 bye. You don't have to pretend, your martial tower should be hidden somewhere, right? Otherwise, the cavern world response pearl on my body would have a reaction. He Xianran said sarcastically, as if she had seen through Su Yu's plan. She was sure that the martial tower was not with Su Yu, so she chose to ambush him. Otherwise, Su Yu would release the creatures of the martial tower world. Even if 100 dust fairies were not afraid of a declining cavern world creature, once the situation became chaotic, it would be very easy for Su Yu to escape. Indeed, the martial tower was indeed hidden by Su Yu, but it was hidden in the 9 jade spiritual pearl. But he did not intend to let the creatures of the martial tower world die for Su Yu in vain. Who told you that I only have one cavern world? Su Yu said lightly. His right arm flashed with green light, and several figures appeared one after another. Mo Tianxian, Jian Wuxing, the Ghost Prison's great emperor, and the Duanxian Cliff Master. Each of them is the top dust fairy of Jiuzhou, especially the Duanxian Cliff Master, who has the top cultivation of the 4th realm of Dust Fairy. Even the descendants of the demon god like the Central Prefecture's king can fight alone for 5 days and 5 nights. His combat power is incredible. The 4 of them joined forces to fight against 100 dust fairies, but it was like a tiger entering a pack of wolves. What can a tiger do, no matter how many sheep there are? I will leave them to you, I will deal with that woman, Su Yu said, stepped forward, and took the initiative to attack. He Xianran was shocked at first. How could there be so many masters in the declining Jiuzhou continent? Especially the Duanxian Cliff Master, who gave her a sense of oppression, which seemed to be stronger than the poisonous dragon. The Jiuzhou continent is indeed declining, and most of the dust fairies born are not good, and their strength is mediocre. But the 4 of them are not the dust fairies born in Jiuzhou. Mo Tianxian had already explained the current situation to them in the 9 jade spiritual pearl. When they learned that God Kailan was caught, they were willing to contribute. However, when He Xianran found out that Su Yu came to her alone, she looked slightly relieved. If it was her, the blood of the divine descendants was enough to kill him. The purpose of her trip was only Su Yu, and there was no evidence, so Jing Bai's death could be avoided. Su Yu was reckless and took the initiative to find her. He Xianran was not angry but happy. Your courage is commendable, but it is also stupid. He Xianran sneered, and a white crane's shadow appeared behind her. The figure flashed, turned into a white shadow, and flew in front of Su Yu in an instant. Everything happened in a split second. Even among the 4 of Mo Tianxian, only the Duanxian Cliff Master could clearly capture the trajectory of He Xianran. He Xianran's mouth was full of cold killing intent, and she was about to tear Su Yu's body. However, she suddenly found that Su Yu was staring at her and smiling. He Xianran's heart thumped, and her heart seemed to miss half a beat. Can he keep up with my speed? He Xianran's mind flashed a thought that she did not believe. It was not until Su Yu's body surged with the light of 9 veins, and the 9 beams of light merged into one and hit her chest, that He Xianran extinguished her fluke mentality. The other party's speed increased, not only in thinking, but also in action could keep up with her unique speed. Whoosh! At the critical moment, He Xianran spread her wings, like a very agile shadow, turned her body at an incredible angle, and brushed past the 9 beams of light. Although a handful of half-red and half-yellow blood was left, and a large number of white feathers were left, she was not hurt. Gradually, Su Yu's state of time acceleration disappeared, and the opportunity to take advantage of her carelessness was fleeting. He Xianran's eyes were awe-inspiring, staring at the faintly discernible time fluctuations around Su Yu, and her heart was clear, and she said coldly, I didn't expect you to have such an exquisite talisman as time acceleration. In this world, there are no more than 4 of them, and you, a savage from Jojo, have 1. It's really not reconciling. Whoosh! When the voice fell, Xianran suddenly made a move, and once again turned into a white shadow and brushed past Suyu. She was feigning an attack to determine whether Suyu still had such a talisman. Now it seemed that there was no such talisman. Her eyes were full of murderous intent. Your end is here. Swish! The white shadow rushed straight to Suyu, arriving in an instant, leaving no time for Suyu to consider. However, her attack failed to hit anything. The place where the palm grasped was a residual shadow. Just as she was shocked, there was a sudden warning behind her. Without thinking, Xianran once again used the agility of the figure to turn over and avoid this blow. At the same time, she looked back and found an unbelievable scene. Behind Suyu, there was a white crane that was exactly the same as the crane that manifested from her descendants' bloodline. It was not just similar, even the breath was exactly the same. For a moment, Xianran thought that the crane deity had a son who inherited the same bloodline as her. But soon, she found that Suyu's eyes were shining with a misty brilliance, like a crystal that recorded images, and was recording the situation in all directions. You imitated my divine descendant's bloodline ability? Xianran took a deep breath. Xianran was no stranger to the pupil technique of imitating move. The Great Eastern Alliance was vast, and there were always such strange people. However, the power of the bloodline of the descendants of the gods, that is derived from the bloodline, how could it be imitated? But Suyu could. Swish! Suyu also turned into a white light, and rushed to the front of Xianran in an instant, and the body of the 9 dragons opened. Xianran's face changed dramatically, and the speed of her proud body was imitated. Where was the slightest advantage? In horror she moved and turned, but she couldn't get rid of Suyu at all. She could only bite her teeth, turn around, and use the power of the dust fairy to resolve the 9 light pillars. However, the 9 light pillars combined, directly penetrated the waves, and penetrated the body of Xianran. In a scream, Xianran was horrified, and she grabbed the void and escaped into it. However, before she could step in, there was a white shadow in front of her. 9 dragons devil-subduing art. With a cold shout, a 9-headed demonic dragon rushed down from the top of Xianran's head as fast as lightning. How could the injured Xianran resist? The earth trembled fiercely, and the 9 heads of the 9-headed demonic dragon each bit a part of Xianran's body and pressed her to the ground. The strength of the demonic dragon's mouth was so great that it directly bit through the body of Xianran, and the powerful impact crushed Xianran's body. Swish! A soul body suddenly flew out of Xianran's body, trying to escape. But just as it moved, the 9-headed demonic dragon showed a contemptuous look, swept its giant tail, and directly swept the soul of Xianran to the ground, and her soul let out a heart-wrenching and painful moan. Suyu flew over and stared at her indifferently. Xianran's eyes were full of hatred and calmness. You dare not kill me! If he killed her, would the crane deity let him go? An outsider who came from a dilapidated abode of immortals, which deity would become enemies with the crane deity because of him? Once he killed her, there would be no place for Suyu in the entire Great Eastern Alliance. Suyu said lightly, "Kill you? That is not in my plan." Chapter 1133. After all, she was the soul of a descendant of a deity. A little carelessness would cause her to escape. You want to exchange me for God Kailan? Xianran suddenly understood Suyu's intention. He had never thought of escaping from the beginning. He pretended to escape, but in fact, he planned to capture her alive to exchange her for God Kailan. Staring at Suyu's deep eyes, Xianran suddenly felt that this Jojo barbarian had extraordinary calmness and wisdom. Since she was captured alive, the other 200 mortal fairies stopped in their tracks for fear of harming her. Suyu suppressed her soul into the soul space in front of them and said, Go back and find someone who can talk to exchange for God Kylan. Well, I suggest you pay attention to the person you find. The 200 mortal fairies were embarrassed, but they all understood the meaning of Su Yu's last sentence. There were several successors under the crane deity. If He Xianran, the favored successor, died, those successors would have a chance. Therefore, if they were asked to negotiate an exchange for God Kylan, He Xianran would be harmed. How can I contact you? A mortal fairy asked. Su Yu threw out a communication jade pendant and said, "This jade pendant can only receive messages, not send messages. Therefore, I can only inform you where to meet, when to exchange, and how many people to bring, all according to my decision, unless you don't want to kill He Xianran. In addition, if anything happens to God Kylan, He Xianran will have to pay double the price. Therefore, don't try to find out my weaknesses and flaws by searching my soul." A few meticulous mortal fairies couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. This audacious kidnapper was really calm. If they wanted to rescue He Xianran safely, not only could they not hurt God Kylan, but they also had to strictly guard against other successors of the crane deity who had ulterior motives. The 200 mortal fairies hurried back anxiously. When everyone was gone, the Duanxian Cliff Master stared at Su Yu and said, "You are really losing money by doing this. Even if God Kylan was rescued, kidnapping a deity's descendant, in a sense, violated their bottom line in the area ruled by hundreds of deities. This was absolutely a taboo. Not to mention how the crane deity would retaliate against him in the future, even other deities would find it difficult to tolerate Su Yu. Before he could gain a firm foothold in the Great Eastern Alliance, he had already lost his shelter. This transaction was undoubtedly a loss. Su Yu smiled and said, "Some things can't be measured by gains and losses. Without God Kylan, as a person of the Jiuzhou Cavern world, would I still be who I am now?" The Duanxian Cliffmaster looked deeply at Su Yu, and after a long time, he revealed a faint smile. "You are not a qualified businessman, but you must be a qualified man. Very good. Wu Xie's vision is not wrong. In the future, when you have children, I will not interfere anymore, and you will be able to discipline them. In the future, when you have great-great-grandchildren, I will hand them over to you to teach, and in the future, if you have a Cliff Master, have you taken your medicine today?" After tidying up, the group left, sweeping away all traces of aura along the way until they arrived at an inconspicuous mountain range. Kidnapping a deity's descendant is a big deal. You have to be fully prepared, the Duanxian Cliffmaster said. Standing beside him was Gongsun Wuxie, who was fuming. Her body was sealed. She could see and hear, but she could not speak or move. At this moment, she stared angrily at her father, who did not allow her to speak or move. She stared angrily at Su Yu, who did not help her. Finally, she stared angrily at Qin Xianer, who was nestled beside Su Yu with a smile. That sweet and shy look made Gongsun Wuxie stamp her feet anxiously, and her lungs were about to explode. However, her father deliberately sealed her. The Duanxian Cliffmaster smiled bitterly. If he did not seal her, this lawless little devil would find out about Qin Xianer's existence, and she would make a scene. Moreover, if he did not seal her, he was afraid that she would not leave Su Yu. "I have a plan. Thank you for your help, Senior." Su Yu cupped his fists and bowed. The Duanxian Cliffmaster was not a Jiuzhou creature, and there was really no need for him to risk his life with Su Yu for the sake of God Kylan. Su Yu took the initiative to let the father and daughter leave. "Ah!" The Duanxian Cliffmaster looked ashamed. "I still have a lifetime regret, and I have to complete it. Otherwise, what's wrong with accompanying you to make a scene?" Su Yu said, "Cliff Master does not need to feel guilty. I have a perfect plan. There is no need to resort to force. Cliff Master, do what you want to do." Su Yu could not help but think of the deep hatred that flashed in his eyes that day on the Duanxian Cliffmaster. He just did not know if his hatred originated from the Great Eastern Alliance. "I am ashamed." The Duanxian Cliffmaster sighed and stepped into the void with Gongsun Wuxia. He said, "If there is a chance, I hope we can meet again." "Certainly." After sending off the Central Prefecture's king, Su Yu's expression suddenly became serious. He made it sound easy, but kidnapping a deity's descendant was a serious matter. What kind of situation would develop in the end was not something Su Yu could control. "What's your plan?" Mo Tianxian asked. Things had developed to this point, and they had no way out. Su Yu looked at Mo Tianxian. Su Yu had also advised her to leave, but she insisted on rescuing God Kailan first. "Yes. There is one thing here that I hope you can do. It is very dangerous, and I can't predict the result." Su Yu took out a letter with a jade pendant attached. Mo Tianxian said, "Dangerous? Tell me about it." "I want you to bring the letter and the message jade pendant to," Su Yu said telepathically. Hearing this, Mo Tianxuan's face was full of surprise. "Are you sure you want to hand it over to him? The risk is simply too great. Since we kidnapped the deity's descendant, the risk has been out of control. In that case, why not mess up the situation and find a chance of survival?" Mo Tianxian pondered for a long time and slowly nodded. "Okay, leave this matter to me." Creak. She immediately broke through the void and left. "Oh, it's really a lot of surprises to travel with you. You just returned to the Great Eastern Alliance, and you already have to do such a big thing." As the third son of the Ghost God, the Ghost Prison's great emperor knew very well what it meant to kidnap a deity's descendant. That would be a major event that would shock the entire God realm. It was unprecedented, but the more it was like this, the more exciting it would be. "Here is a task that needs to be handed over to you, and only you are suitable for it," Su Yu said, taking out a 1,000-year-old heavenly orchid silver bamboo from the 9-jade spiritual pearl. Jiuzhou's #1 divine bamboo, even in the God realm, is a rare treasure, not to mention that it has been cultivated for 1,000 years, and its value is too high. My identity is ordinary, and if I rashly sell this bamboo, there will be endless trouble. Therefore, you need to sell this bamboo with the identity of a descendant of the Ghost God. After more than half a year, this heavenly orchid silver bamboo had also reached the maturity of 1,000 years. "You need to raise money?" The Ghost Prison's great emperor was surprised. Su Yu was almost unable to stand on his feet. Why was he still thinking about making money? "Yes, I need a lot of money. This heavenly orchid silver bamboo is just a test, and I will continue to sell rare and old spiritual objects of the world," Su Yu said. The Ghost Prison's great emperor thought about it and did not hesitate much. Although revealing his identity as a descendant of the Ghost God would definitely be known by his father, so what? He might as well accompany Su Yu and have a good time. Anyway, his father did not value him. With the identity of a descendant of the Ghost God, auctioning valuable objects would indeed save a lot of trouble. Su Yu had considered this point very carefully. After handing over the communication jade pendant to the Ghost Prison's great emperor and sending him away, Su Yu said to Jian Wuxing, "I have a task for you." Jian Wuxing nodded. She had always respected the sacred Kailan, so there was no reason for her not to help. Su Yu said quietly. Jian Wuxing's eyes lit up when she heard that, and her gentle face could not help but show a look of approval. "You have advanced and retreated at the same time. You are very thoughtful. Leave this matter to me." Jian Wuxing turned around and was about to leave. After taking 2 steps, she stopped and looked back at Su Yu deeply. "I have a question and something to tell you. The question is, on the ruins of the Red Blood Palace, was it you who became a deity?" Su Yu thought for a moment and shook his head. No. It was not that he did not believe Jian Wuxing, but Su Yu could not tell others about the fact that he had become a prospective deity. The more he knew, the more likely it was to be exposed. Once Su Yu's whereabouts were exposed, it would be a catastrophe for the people around Su Yu. Countless influences and even deities would take action to capture the people close to Su Yu, torture them, and use all kinds of threats and promises to make them reveal Su Yu's whereabouts. In this case, it was better to say nothing. Jian Wuxing's face showed a trace of disappointment. Then, she said, "What I want to tell you is that my daughter has also come to the Great Eastern Alliance. I can feel that she has come for you." Su Yu did not speak, waiting for her to finish her words quietly. After hesitating for a long time, Jian Wuxing said with mixed feelings, "If you can, please don't hurt her." Was it Bing Wuxin or Bing Wuqing? Or both? "I understand," Su Yu said. He had never hurt Bing Wuqing because if he hurt her, he would hurt Bing Wuxin. Watching Jian Wuxing leave, Qin Xianer tilted her head curiously. "Brother Su Yu, what do you want me to do? You didn't call me out to deliberately anger that little girl, did you?" Thinking of Gongsun Wuxie's face flushed with anger, but she could not move or speak, Qin Xianer could not help but burst into laughter. "A little girl? She's older than you." Su Yu glanced at Qin Xianer's petite body, which was no better than Gongsun Wuxie's, and laughed secretly. He did not know where Xianer got the confidence to say that she was a little girl. "I called you out. You don't have to do anything, just accompany me to tour the great mountains and rivers of the God Realm," Su Yu said. Qin Xianer was stunned. At such a critical moment, Su Yu took her out to play? After confirming that Su Yu was not joking, although Qin Xianer was worried, she still felt sweet in her heart. Then, she took Su Yu's arm with her right hand and started to play with a smile. Su Yu was really playing. 2 months passed, and he had traveled half of the God Realm. He went to famous cities and scenic spots everywhere. In a quiet training room of the All-Access Chamber of Commerce, Yang Tai was quietly listening to the report of an old man at the peak of the mortal ferry. "What's the reaction of all parties?" Yang Tai asked casually as he flipped through a secret book of cultivation technique. Chapter 1134. The law enforcers are searching for this man. The Sunluo law enforcers ranked 60 or below. 10 of them joined the investigation. Yang Tai asked, "What about the Crane deity's family?" "Nothing happened. They are waiting for the kidnappers." "What about the Crane deity himself?" "Nothing happened either." Yang Tai looked away from the book and said calmly, "Silence is the power of silence. The Crane deity's family is angry." "Well, what about that guy? Did you find out where he is hiding?" He's traveling." Yang Tai was surprised. "Are you sure?" "Yes, he is traveling around the God Realm with his wife. However, every time he appeared, he would leave soon. The law enforcers failed to find him because he has no purpose." Hearing Su Yu was traveling around the God Realm in a high profile, Yang Tai said disappointedly, "He kidnapped a deity's descendant as soon as he came ashore. I thought there was something special about him. It turns out he is just a fool." The old man felt sorry for Su Yu. According to the merchant ship that came back, Su Yu met the young master on the way, and was liked by the young master. The young master ordered him to take care of Su Yu after he came ashore. However, before the All-Access Chamber of Commerce could take care of him, he did something earth-shattering, kidnapping a deity's descendant. The young master, who had almost forgotten this man, started to pay attention to him again. Apparently, the young master appreciated Su Yu's resolute way of doing things. However, he didn't expect Su Yu to be a reckless man. "Stop collecting information about him." Yang Tai lost interest in Su Yu. When the old man was about to leave, Yang Tai put down the book and said with a frown, "Show me the specific information first. I don't think he is such a reckless man." Before long, a thick pile of information appeared in front of him. Everything that had happened to Su Yu in the past 2 months was recorded on it. It was so detailed that it made people's hair stand on end. Where he went, what he wore, what he ate, whom he talked to, how far he walked, how far he flew, and how many times he kissed Xianer were recorded in detail. The information seemed trivial, but Yang Tai was familiar with it. What was business? Information was business. The All-Access Trading Company's intelligence network covered every corner of God's domain, from large cities to small villages of mortals. This was the reason why the All-Access Trading Company was able to last for so long and control the wealth of God's domain. Yang Tai flipped through the information very quickly. Lines of trivial information were reflected in his eyes. An hour later, Yang Tai slowly closed his eyes, and he revealed a faint smile when he opened them once more. I really underestimated him. Young master, please give me some pointers. The old man was puzzled. Was he hiding something by being so reckless and ostentatious? Yang Tai pointed at the information and said with a smile, "Firstly, there's one less and one more by his side." Mo Tianxian had disappeared, but Qin Xiener, who had never appeared before, had appeared. From this, it can be inferred that he has a portable cavern world or has a certain foundation in the deity domain. Where did the missing woman in black go? This is a blind spot. Secondly, all the places he went to had a common characteristic. The old man thought about it but couldn't figure out what the common characteristic was. That is, 8 of the 10 famous cities he went to had the ability to build divine bone ship. The other 2 cities were famous for selling information. It seemed that he was traveling, but in fact, he was preparing a way out for himself. The old man said in surprise, "Did he think he could buy a divine bone ship that could cross the Star River? Not to mention the cost, none of the cities would sell a divine bone ship because it was against the rules of the 100 deities. It was impossible for him to buy a divine bone ship." Yang Tai said with a faint smile, "He is smarter than you. Of course, he couldn't buy a divine bone ship. However, he could buy the parts of the divine bone ship. He didn't have the blueprints and an equipment forging master who could build a divine bone ship." The old man couldn't continue because Su Yu had gone to 2 other places where information was sold. Those places were like gray areas. As long as the price was high enough, it was possible to find the blueprints and an equipment forging master. What about money? He is just an outsider. How could he get such a huge amount of money? Even I can't afford a divine bone ship even if I save up for my whole life, let alone him. Yang Tai's fingers flicked on the documents briskly as he said, "Coincidentally, I recently read a brief on the capital flow of the major auction houses, and I was surprised to find that the 3rd son of the demon god has returned, and he is selling all kinds of extremely old heaven and earth spiritual treasures, ranging from 100 years old to 1,000 years old. There was also a heavenly orchid silver bamboo that was 1,000 years old, and just that heavenly orchid silver bamboo alone was sold for 10 million shinbi. The rest of the materials were sold for more than 30 million divine coins. That's more than 40 million divine coins. 40 million divine coins? The old man's hands trembled and his eyes turned red. The divine coin was the standard currency of the Great Eastern Alliance. 1 divine coin could be exchanged for 1 million crystals. For him, 40 million divine coins was a huge amount that he couldn't earn in his whole life. 40 million divine coins. How many divine bone ships can you buy with that amount? Yang Tai said with a faint smile. Even if he bought the blueprints from the black market and hired the equipment forging masters from the black market, he could still buy 10 small divine bone ships. But how can the young master be sure that the descendant of the ghost god is collecting money for him? There is no connection between the two, right? Yang Tai said with a smile. The 3rd son of the ghost god left the Great Eastern Alliance 100 years ago. 100 years later, he came to the Great Eastern Alliance with that brat. Yang Tai stood up with his hands behind his back, and a faint smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. There are not so many coincidences in the world. After hearing that, the old man took a deep breath and said with admiration, "This young man is really meticulous. He is still on the run, but he has already considered everything and even prepared the final route of retreat. How flawless!" The old man was sincerely convinced by Su Yu's calculation. However, Yang Tai shook his head calmly. Flawless? Not necessarily. He is indeed smart. However, Smart people often have a bad habit. They think too highly of themselves and look down on others. The old man said to himself, "Young master, aren't you looking down on him now? How many outstanding people have been produced in the divine realm for millions of years? Even today's deities have accumulated wisdom over the years. We can find out that he is secretly building the divine bone ship and preparing the route of retreat. How can we know that the crane deity can't find out? Therefore, he is still too young and thinks too highly of himself." The old man said, "Young master." Then Yang Tai paused and said, "Forget it. There are not many smart people in the world. If one dies, there will be one less. You can help him secretly. If you can't do it, remember to let go. Well, remember to keep me updated on the progress." In a maple forest, Suyu held Siener's hand and enjoyed the forest. Siener was very satisfied. After knowing him for so long, this was the first time that she had stayed with him for such a long time. She couldn't help but think of Xia Jingyu. "Brother Suyu, do you think Sister Jingyu is in the Great Eastern Alliance?" Suyu shook his head. "No, if she is here, we should have heard the news long ago." Qin Siener thought for a while and said, "Well, yes, Sister Jingyu is so beautiful. If she shows up, she will definitely amaze the entire continent. The title of the first beauty will be her, not the Sunluo law enforcing team's captain." Suyu patted her head with a smile. "My Siener is also the first beauty of the God realm. Why are you so unknown?" Hearing Suyu's teasing, Qin Siener snorted and lightly hammered his arm. Her fair face was like a blossoming peach blossom. Suyu did secretly inquire about Xia Jingyu, but there was no news of her existence. Just as Siener said, she was so outstanding that she shouldn't be unknown. "If I find Sister Jingyu, I must take her to travel around the world like this." Qin Siener leaned on Suyu's shoulder and closed her eyes contentedly, enjoying the gentle breeze. Suyu said, "Oh? Why?" Qin Siener closed her eyes and said weakly, "Because Siener has enjoyed it, but Sister Jingyu hasn't. It's not fair." Silly girl, Suyu loved her even more. People were selfish. How could there be a saint who was willing to share an exclusive possession? Siener must be very sad. She was only doing this to maintain their relationship. After leaving the God realm, the sky is high and the sea is wide. After finding Jingyu, the three of us will travel around the world. What do you think?" Qin Siener said with a sweet smile. Then, she fell asleep. Even a martial artist couldn't bear traveling for a long time. Suyu kissed her forehead gently and carried her into the world of the martial tower. When he came out again, the tenderness on his face was replaced by seriousness. "It's time to start the plan." Suyu's figure disappeared in the maple forest, leaving only a faint shadow. After waiting for a long time, the crane deity's family finally received a message from the jade pendant. 10 days later, they arrived at the designated place, the world of the brush deity. They met in a spacious restaurant at the trading place. However, when the time came, Suyu was still nowhere to be seen. "You brought 100 more people than the agreement. Ask the hidden guards nearby to leave." Zhang Yiming, the deputy captain of the law enforcement team established by the crane deity, was in charge of this exchange mission. Zhang Yiming looked around coldly after receiving the message from the jade pendant again. However, he didn't see Suyu. He was puzzled. How did Suyu know that he had planted 100 spies in the vicinity? However, his plan was seen through. So, he could only ask all of them to leave as instructed by the jade pendant. After a while, the jade pendant sent another message. "Go to the water world, the mermaid city." Zhang Yiming was annoyed. However, he had to go to the water world with his people. As soon as he left, a few more hidden experts also left the city. Suyu was looking at a wine cup nearest to the transportation portal. Whether the crane deity's family sent people here or left with their people, they had to go through the transportation portal. This place was the best transportation portal. 1 day later, another 4 or 5 hidden experts left for the water world. 2 days later, 3 experts left. 3 days later, 2 experts left. On the 5th day, no more experts left for the water world. Chapter 1135. However, Suyu was just beside the transportation portal in front of them. It seemed like he didn't intend to go to the water world at all. At this time, Suyu picked up the jade pendant and sent another message: "Let's exchange at the original place." In the water world, in the mermaid city. Zhang Yiming clenched the jade pendant tightly and gnashed his teeth in anger. He had waited for half a month in vain. When all the spies were just set up, they changed to the original place. Zhang Yiming realized that he had been fooled by Suyu. Suyu had been in the world of brush deity all the time. When all the spies were sent away, Suyu summoned him again. In this way, it would be quite difficult for him to set up spies again. How cunning you are! Zhang Yiming really wanted to step on Suyu and go to the world of brush deity alone. Zhang Yiming found Suyu, who was drinking alone in a spacious restaurant. Suyu was waiting for him with a relaxed look on his face. "Oh? You are here? I have been choosing many places, but I still like the scenery here. It's really a shame for you to come here," Suyu said with a smile. Zhang Yiming sat down and said directly, "I am here alone. All the spies have been removed. Where is she? Let's exchange her." Suyu said with a faint smile, "Don't tell me you think I will take He Xianran with me. You are fooling us." Zhang Yiming stood up angrily. Suyu said with a faint smile, "If you throw away the treasure given by the crane deity, I will exchange her with you." Zhang Yiming said seriously, "I don't know what you mean. We are here with sincerity." "Sincerity? If you are sincere, why don't you open your storage space and let me see whether you have any powerful treasures given by the ghost deity?" Zhang Yiming said nothing and sat down. His original plan was to seriously injure Suyu with the treasure given by the crane deity once He Xianran was with him. Now it seemed Suyu had already seen through his plan and moved He Xianran to another place. In this way, Zhang Yiming couldn't kill Suyu to ensure He Xianran's safety. "Tell me, how do you want to exchange?" Zhang Yiming felt helpless in front of such a cunning opponent. Suyu said, "It's quite simple. I want to exchange the treasure with you." "Exchange?" Zhang Yiming's eyes lit up. Suyu placed a communication jade pendant on the table and activated it. Immediately, He Xianran's anxious cry for help came from it. "Are the people of the crane deity's family outside? Come and save me, I'm trapped in a dark." Woo woo, her mouth was covered, followed by a lewd voice, "Hee hee, such soft skin and tender flesh, delicious." Zhang Yiming's face changed. "Stop. Don't you dare touch her." If He Xianran's reputation was ruined, even if she was saved, it would be a disgrace to the crane deity's family. He didn't know that the words of the evil god were literal. He Xianran's meat must be delicious. "What the hell do you want?" Zhang Yiming was going crazy. Suyu said, "I'll hand the jade pendant over to you, then my people will leave slowly. He Xianran will tell you where she is through the jade pendant, and you can go look for her on your own. This is the exchange of goods." Zhang Yiming refused flatly. "What if you kill them after we hand them over?" Suyu spread out his palms. "Why should we kill the hostages? In other words, do we have any reason to kill them?" Zhang Yiming was lost in thought. Indeed, they kidnapped He Xianran to save the sacred Kailan. Killing He Xianran was not beneficial at all. It would only infuriate the crane deity's family more. Zhang Yiming nodded his head and agreed to save He Xianran first. He snorted in his heart. "No matter whether you kill He Xianran or not, you have seriously challenged the dignity of the crane deity's family. From ordinary people to the crane deity. They couldn't let it go. The divine realm would never have a peaceful day if they didn't use their blood to frighten people. This was not only the will of the crane deity, but also the will of the 100 deities of the Great Eastern Alliance. Killing Suyu to warn the world was the trend of the Great Eastern Alliance, an irresistible trend. Suyu must die. Zhang Yiming released the god Kailan from the storage bag on his waist. The god Kailan ran to Zhang Yiming and cried, "Boy Su, I'm so touched. I heard that you kidnapped a descendant of a deity to save me. I was so touched that I cried. I love you so much. Hey, don't hide. Let me give you a kiss. Ouch, be gentle, be gentle." Su Yu's face darkened. Then, he pressed the sacred Kailan on the table with one finger and said calmly, "You should take it back. We don't want this sacred Kailan anymore." Zhang Yiming was speechless. Then, Su Yu left the restaurant with the sacred Kailan. After making sure nobody was following them, he left quickly. Zhang Yiming asked hurriedly with the jade pendant in his hand, "Third miss, where are you?" He Xianran said sadly, "I don't know. It's completely dark here." Swish, swish, swish. The experts of the crane deity's family, who were informed by Zhang Yiming, walked over. "Deputy Captain Zhang, let's go and kill that bastard." Zhang Yiming waved his hand to stop them. "No. I don't know whether his helper is still with Mississippi. If Su Yu is irritated, he might kill Mississippi. That will be a great loss." "Then what should we do?" "Let's find Miss according to the clues provided by Miss first. As for that bastard, Humph, does he think he can escape?" What happened in this place was noticed by all the influential people. Then, the news was sent back to the All-Access Chamber of Commerce. In the All-Access Chamber of Commerce, Yang Tai was listening to the old man's detailed report on Su Yu's every move. Yang Tai said approvingly, "Hee, interesting." Most of the other influential people were on the crane deity's side. They all hated the crane deity after hearing the whole story. "This bastard is really cunning. I hope the crane deity can control his temper. After all, his body is getting weaker and weaker year by year." This news has been spread out in the market. Everyone is talking about it. A foreign bastard made fun of the crane deity's family. Humph. We should suppress his arrogance immediately. If the people in the Great Eastern Alliance learn from him, the deity's descendant will be in danger. The conflict between the deity's family and the ordinary martial artists could be seen clearly from these words. One was nervous, while the other was enjoying the story. As a martial artist who was born in a poor family, his future as a deity was almost cut off by the deity's world. Most of the good resources were in the hands of the deity's family. Once, a martial artist who was born in a poor family was attacked by the deity's family when he was in the process of becoming a deity. They killed him on the pretext that he had done evil in the past. The poor people didn't like the deity's family at all. However, the deity's family was in the ruling position. They couldn't do anything about it. Now they heard Su Yu, a poor martial artist from an abandoned cavern world, was making fun of the crane deity's family. They even cheered for Su Yu secretly. Su Yu was teleported to the edge of the brush deity's world, which was the largest port of the Great Eastern Alliance. 80% of the divine bone ships were entering and leaving here. When he arrived at a small divine bone ship, a disguised old man said while rubbing his hands, "The ship is ready. Now is it time to..." The disguised old man was an equipment forging master hired by Su Yu from the black market. The divine bone ship was made by him. Su Yu threw out a white card, which was similar to the bank card in his previous life. It could be used to withdraw a certain amount of shunbi from the fixed financial market of the Great Eastern Alliance. The disguised old man took the card and checked it. When he was sure the amount in it was not bad, he said with a smile, "Good luck." Then, he ran away quickly. Su Yu jumped onto the ship. It was quite easy to operate this ship. As long as it left the continent, it would absorb the strength of the Star River and run continuously. When he was on the ship, he only needed to control the direction. When the Divine Bone ship entered the Star River and left the continent, Su Yu successfully escaped. After spending so much effort secretly, he finally saved the sacred Kailan. However, at this moment, 4 small ships of the same size came from the Star River and blocked Su Yu's way as if they had been waiting for him for a long time. At the same time, 4 small ships flew out from the continent and blocked Su Yu's way too. All of a sudden, 8 small boats surrounded Su Yu, and not even a drop of water could escape. On each of the small ships, there were no less than 10 experts of the crane deity's family. When Su Yu saw them, he couldn't help but gasp. The weakest one among them was a stage 2 mortal fairy. There were as many as 10 experts of the stage 4 mortal fairy. Among them, 2 young men who carried the bloodline of the crane deity were staring at Su Yu coldly. Undoubtedly, those 2 young men were the other 2 direct descendants of the crane deity. The man with a hawk nose and a green robe was He Jinghong, the eldest brother of the crane deity. He was ruthless but talented. The bloodline of the crane deity was very pure, which was only inferior to He Xianran. On the other ship, there was a very simple and honest young man, who was slightly plump and had a slight sense of inferiority. He was the crane deity's second son, He Rushu. His innate talent was far inferior to that of his eldest brother, and was inferior to that of his younger sister, He Xianran. He had not been valued by the crane deity for a long time, and had no status in the crane deity's clan. Both of them had been ordered by their families to ambush here in advance. Humph! Kneel down and surrender! He Jinghong shouted coldly. Under the gaze of dozens of powerful mortal fairies, Su Yu knelt down on the ground and cried for mercy. The family of the crane deity? Please spare my life. What did I do wrong? What? Hearing the cries of his father and mother, the sneering faces of the crowd changed. He Rushu flew over and examined Su Yu, who was kneeling on the ground. Suddenly, he found there was a layer of something made of special material on Su Yu's face. When he was about to speak, He Jinghong walked over and pushed him aside. He Rushu, who was clumsy, almost fell into the Star River. He Rushu hurriedly steadied himself, which looked very funny. However, no one noticed a hint of ferociousness flashed in the depth of his eyes. When he raised his head, the ferociousness was replaced by panic and anxiety. He Jinghong snorted and glanced at his useless younger brother. Then, he tore off the material on Su Yu's face. It was a high-level mask that could resist the detection of mortal fairies. After tearing off the mask, a strange and frightened face was revealed. Chapter 1136. Who are you? Why are you on this ship? He Jinghong asked angrily. The man knelt on the ground, shivering, and said, 2 months ago, a handsome young man with a head full of silver hair entrusted me with a mission to make a fortune, and as long as I completed it, he would give me 100 shinbi, and he even gave me an advance of 10 shinbi. He asked me to go to the Milky Way to pick up someone with this mask. I set off after I received his signal just now. Lords of the crane deity's family, I really don't know how I have offended you. He Jinghong's mask creaked as he tugged on it, his face full of anger and humiliation. The rest of the people of the crane deity's family also looked gloomy. They were all fooled. Su Yu had been planning this for 2 months. If this man was not Su Yu, then where was the real Su Yu? On the shore, the disguised old man looked at Su Yu, who was surrounded by many people. He didn't know the details of the situation. He just thought Su Yu was captured. Playing with the other purse in his hand, he said with a smile, "Why did I use only one hand to collect money? Young man, don't blame me. Money is a good thing, and I don't want too much of it." However, just as he finished speaking, an indifferent voice drilled into his ears. Sometimes, extending an extra hand can be fatal. The disguised old man only had time to see a handsome silver-haired face with a cold smile. Then, his vision went black and his soul was destroyed. Su Yu picked up the 2 purses on the ground and weighed them in his hand. Then, he looked at the confrontation in the Star River and smiled. Then, he walked in another direction. In that direction, a small divine bone ship was drifting quietly. A mysterious man in a black cloak was sitting on the ship. When Su Yu boarded the ship, the man in the black cloak removed the veil and revealed a beautiful woman. As expected, that black market equipment forging grandmaster is unreliable. Fortunately, you had 2 backup plans. On the surface, you built the ship to lure the enemies away. Then, you secretly asked me to prepare another ship. The absolutely beautiful woman in front of him was none other than Jian Wuxing. The ship prepared by her was Su Yu's real backup plan. As for the boat that he had secretly prepared for a sightseeing trip, Su Yu didn't think that a deity's family didn't have smart people who couldn't see through his purpose of sightseeing. Therefore, the ship prepared by him was a decoy. What he asked Jian Wuxing to do was to prepare a divine bone boat. When everyone's attention was focused on him, who would pay attention to Jian Wuxing, who had never appeared before? Let's set sail. They will soon react, Su Yu said. The small divine bone ship sailed into the dark universe soundlessly like a small boat. In the secret room of the all-access Chamber of Commerce, Yang Tai listened to the old man's report on the current situation. Young Master, as Young Master had expected, he was surrounded by the 8 divine bone ships that the Crane Deities clan had set up not long after he left with the divine bone ship. It seems like the Crane Deities clan has long been aware that he was secretly preparing the divine bone ship and bribed the equipment refiner from the black market. A faint confident smile hung on Yang Tai's face as he commented, "Sigh, smart people always have this kind of problem. They look down on others and overestimate themselves. You can come back now. You don't have to worry about it anymore. Wait." Suddenly, the old man on the other side transmitted his voice. "Young Master, something doesn't seem right. The one they brought back, isn't that kid?" "Wait," the old man said in surprise. "They found the dead body of the equipment refiner from the black market. He didn't lose anything except 2 bags of divine coins." "Young Master, please tell me. Young Master. Young Master, are you there?" The faint smile on Yang Tai's face was still on his face. However, his smile was frozen and his confidence was gone. After a while, Yang Tai took a deep breath and said, Write him, I will go there in person." Somehow, Yang Tai was in a bad mood. He liked smart people, but he didn't like people who were as smart as him. Because he felt he couldn't control this person if he did that. When he arrived at the port, the people of the Crane Deities clan were still arguing on the shore. They were discussing where to find Su Yu. Staring at the dead body of the equipment refiner on the ground, Yang Tai said after a while, "Okay, let me test you. Tell them that Su Yu entered the Star River. The direction is southwest." According to Yang Tai's speculations, Su Yu was throwing out bait, and he wasn't trying to create a diversion. Since the fish had taken the bait, Su Yu must have left. As for the direction, he must go to the southwest to avoid the attention of the people of the Crane Deities clan. The old man asked a porter of the all-access Chamber of Commerce to inform them that a silver-haired young man had killed the equipment refiner from the black market and escaped to the southwest. The people of the Crane Deities clan were in a heated discussion about this matter. After thinking about it carefully, they found it was quite possible. Half of them stayed here to search for Su Yu, while the other half went to the southwest. The old man asked in confusion, "Young Master, why did you do that?" Why did the young master, who was interested in Su Yu, help the people of the Crane Deities clan to deal with Su Yu? Without the young master's advice, the people of the Crane Deities clan would have to spend a lot of time to figure out the key point. Yang Tai said calmly, "Nothing. I just wanted to test him." The old man beside him vaguely sensed the young master was competing with Su Yu secretly. Su Yu's divine bone ship was drifting in the endless Star River. They couldn't see the specific shape of the continent behind them. They could only see a piece of bright light. "It seems we are out of trouble," Jian Wuxing said with relief. Su Yu shook his head. "We can't be careless until the last moment," Jian Wuxing said as she looked behind her. Then, her expression changed slightly. "I'm afraid you are right." They saw 4 divine bone ships were chasing after them rapidly. They could vaguely see many figures with the mark of the Crane deity standing at the prow of the ships. Su Yu sighed softly. The deity's clan is full of smart people. I'm surprised they could catch up with us so quickly. However, Su Yu didn't look flustered and he said calmly, let's speed up as well. Our destination is north. Hirushu, who was staying on the shore, received a message from his elder brother, He Jinghong, follow us. We found them. They are heading to the southwest. Hearing that, Hirushu led the people on the shore to chase after them like a chicken pecking rice. A confident and indifferent smile appeared on Yang Tai's face again, as if everything was under his control. Wait. He changed his direction. He is heading to the north. You should intercept him in the north. He Jinghong shouted excitedly. Yang Tai's smile faded away as he was lost in thought. Why did he change his direction suddenly? If he changed his direction rashly, it would be disadvantageous for him to escape. North was a straight direction for Hirushu, and he could block his way easily. Find a ship. Let's follow them. Yang Tai said resolutely. The old man sighed. However, he couldn't disobey his young master's order. Soon, he found a top-grade divine bone ship and left for the north. In the Star River, 4 divine bone ships were chasing after a divine bone ship crazily. He Jinghong laughed like a hunter who had hunted for a long time and was about to catch his prey. Where can you escape to? Escape? Su Yu said with a faint smile. Half a day later, when the 4 divine bone ships were about to surround them, the other 4 divine bone ships of the Crane deity's clan approached them from the south. Now, Su Yu had no way to escape. He Jinghong said with a hideous smile. It would be a great achievement if he could catch this man. However, he was quite regretful. If only he could kill his younger sister, He Xianran. Without his younger sister, this great achievement would be more precious. Hirushu was still clumsy. Then, he stopped Su Yu with his clansmen as he shouted like a pig being slaughtered. Su Yu was about to be surrounded by 2 divine bone ships. Yang Tai, who was watching this scene from afar, said with a victorious smile. All of a sudden, a deafening explosion could be heard. Then, a divine bone ship around He Jinghong was blown up by a tremendous force. Then, all the experts of the Crane deity's clan fell into the Star River. The wild beasts hiding in the Star River dashed over immediately. Instantly, 3 experts of the Crane deity's clan were devoured by them. The rest of the divine bone ships climbed onto the smaller divine bone ships with lingering fear. However, another divine bone ship was blown up by the explosion before they could stand still. This time, they didn't suffer too many casualties because they reacted in time. Their hearts were filled with panic like weeds. They didn't feel the pleasure of catching up with Su Yu anymore. He Jinghong stared at a place in the distance. He saw a giant creature was hiding in the star cloud. When the star cloud was broken, the giant creature appeared in front of them. Then, they couldn't help but gasp in fear. It was a brand new pitch-black battleship. It was a battleship. On both sides of the battleship, there were 100 pitch-black entrances. Smoke and dust could be seen in one of the entrances. He Jinghong's pupils were as small as needles. His feet were shivering in fear. This kind of battleship was an invincible giant creature in the Star River. Anyone who came here could only be cannon fodder unless they were deities. In this Star River, which couldn't accommodate human bodies, a battleship was the only way. The power of the battleship was the deciding factor. The Crane deity's clan had battleships, of course. However, they didn't expect to chase an outsider with battleships. In front of such a giant creature, even 80 unarmed divine bone ships would be annihilated, let alone 8 small divine bone ships. In the distance, Yang Tai clenched his fists with a gloomy face. What Su Yu had prepared was not 1 boat, nor 2 boats, but 3. Moreover, the 3rd ship was also a battleship that Yang Tai didn't expect. He remembered Su Yu had obtained a huge amount of divine coins to build 10 small divine bone ships. Now, it seemed like the first 2 ships were just a ruse. The last battleship was Su Yu's real target. He didn't run away. he lured the Crane deity's clan here to kill all of them. It was ridiculous that he guided the Crane deity's clan to step into Su Yu's trap. He didn't like the feeling of being outsmarted by Su Yu. Chapter 1137. Jian Wuxing jumped onto the battleship. She didn't know how to describe her feelings. When she thought she had prepared a backup plan, Su Yu had prepared a backup plan for her. This battleship was enough for them to leave this place safely. Who would dare to chase after them? Even if the Crane deity's family sent a battleship to chase after them, Su Yu would still enter the depths of the Star River. The Ghost Clan's great emperor glanced at the ashen-faced Crane deity's family members and said delightedly, "I can do whatever I want. It was the right decision to follow you." The Ghost Clan's great emperor was responsible for buying the third battleship. The outcome was determined. However, a cold snort echoed in the Star River at this moment. Wherever the sound reached, the wild beasts wandering around the small divine bone ship fled away in fear. After a while, the Star River fell into silence. The people above the Milky Way all felt an extremely heavy pressure, as if something powerful was approaching, making it difficult for them to breathe. Yang Tai said with a sigh, "I knew the Crane deity would come here in person. Right, it's time to end this issue." Looking at Su Yu on the battleship, Yang Tai said pitifully, "What a pity! He is as smart as me. If the All-Access Chamber of Commerce could use him, the All-Access Chamber of Commerce would benefit a lot. It's a pity that his weak foundation is his fatal weakness. Without the support of a deity, he won't be able to do anything no matter how smart he is." When a deity arrived, all his advantages would be turned around. It couldn't be helped. Gods represented absolute power. However, even though a deity arrived, he didn't show his real body. He snorted coldly. "The Crane deity's family was played by you. Do you think it's interesting?" The Crane deity's family members were embarrassed. If the Crane deity didn't help them, Su Yu would have killed all of them. "Hand over Xianran's soul," the Crane deity said indifferently. "What? He still has Xianran? Didn't they exchange their souls?" At the thought of this, the Crane deity's family members were extremely angry. They were played by Su Yu from head to toe. Su Yu stood at the bow of the ship, but he didn't seem afraid at all. He calmly asked, "What if I don't hand it over?" The entire area was in silence. Even Yang Tai didn't expect Su Yu would dare to talk to a deity like this before his death. Wait, could it be that Su Yu still had a backup plan? However, he only thought about it for a moment before dropping the idea. How could an outsider fight against a god? Unless Su Yu also had a deity behind him. Even Yang Tai, who was from the god realm, couldn't find a deity to rely on in such a short time, let alone an outsider like Su Yu. "Who gave you the guts?" the Crane deity asked indifferently. Everyone could feel the murderous intent pervading the galaxy. Whether Su Yu handed over his Xianran or not, he had to die today. When a god made his move, there was no suspense. However, a shocking voice drifted into everyone's ears. "I gave it to you. Is there a problem?" A low and magnetic voice floated out from the warship. At the same time, a divine pressure that was slightly stronger than the Crane deity's suddenly descended like a raging storm. Shwa, a beam of white light filled with divine power descended from the sky, accompanied by countless white feathers. It was exceptionally dreamy. The figure in the white light was blurry and could not be seen at all. A mystical dragon can see its head but not its tail. A deity can see an elephant but not its shape. A deity would never reveal his true self easily. Crane deity. The Crane deity's family was excited. Even they rarely saw the Crane deity in person. So, they cheered immediately. However, the Crane deity was standing on the warship and looking at a figure who was bathed in ripples walking out of the cabin. The Crane deity heaved a sigh of relief and said in a deep voice, "Jing deity." "What? The Jing deity?" Everyone was shocked. Yang Tai claimed to be extremely smart, but he didn't understand why it was the Jing deity. Any deity in the god realm could support Su Yu in a hot-headed manner, except the Jing deity. Because the Jing deity's successor, Jing Bai, was killed by Su Yu. This was something that everyone knew. Why would the Jing deity support the murderer who killed his son? Moreover, it seemed the Jing deity had been invited to the worship a long time ago. It was not until the crane deity showed up that the Jing deity supported Su Yu. All kinds of unimaginable things made people exclaim in admiration. How could he persuade the Jing deity to help the enemy who killed his son to fight against his deity friend? How did he do it? How did he do it? Yang Tai clenched his fists. Beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. However, he still couldn't figure out the reason. The crane deity asked him the reason. Why do you want to help him? The Jing deity said coldly, because my son, Jing Bai, was not killed by him. At this time, Mo Tianxian walked out of the cabin and stood behind Su Yu quietly. Su Yu's task was to find the Jing deity with the letter and the messenger pendant. Su Yu's jade pendant contained 2 sentences. First, I am not the murderer of Jing Bai. Second, I can help you find the murderer. As a person who had lived for countless years, he should believe Su Yu's sincerity even if he didn't believe it. If Su Yu was the murderer, why did he send someone here? Then, the letter explained everything in detail, especially the name of one person. When he left, he only saw He Xianran. He didn't know Jing Bai at all. How could he kill him? The Jing deity knew something was wrong. Either Su Yu was lying or He Xianran was lying. Moreover, Jing Bai's body was nowhere to be found, which made the Jing deity even more suspicious. However, he didn't believe Su Yu's words because of that. Until he investigated secretly, almost all the law enforcers and attendants who went to Jiuzhou with Jing Bai and He Xianran for the mission died abnormally or went missing. Only one person named Meng didn't witness Jing Bai's death. The missing person was Tsang Tie, the leader of the law enforcement team under the jurisdiction of the book deity. He tried to find Tsang Tie, but he found nothing. At this point, he finally believed that Su Yu's words were most likely true. Jing Bai's death must be a secret. The only person who knew the truth was He Xianran, the liar. Why did she lie? What was she hiding in Jing Bai's death? That was the reason why he appeared on the battleship to confront the crane deity. The crane deity said, "If he didn't kill Jing Bai, that's fine. Why did you stop me from killing him? This man kidnapped my daughter and offended the deities. He should be killed." The Jing deity said coldly, "I didn't kill him because of your daughter. Because it was a lie told by your daughter. Now, I'm going to confront you in public. Why did your daughter blame Jing Bai's death on him?" After saying that, the Jing deity looked at Su Yu and waved his hand. In an instant, Su Yu's soul space was like air without any defense. The Jing deity took out He Xianran's soul directly. He Xianran was still confused. When she found the 2 deities, especially the Jing deity, were also present, she couldn't help but feel her heart skip a beat. A trace of panic flashed across her face. How could this trace of panic fool the Jing deity? He couldn't help but look cold. "How did my son Jing Bai die?" "Repeat it," the Jing deity said coldly. "Don't try to lie, and don't force me to search your soul." He Xianran trembled with despair in her eyes. She didn't understand how things had developed to the point where the 2 deities were confronting each other. The crane deity's face turned cold. "Jing deity, if you still regard me as your friend, don't force me." His daughter's soul was searched in public. How could he save his face in the God realm? "It's because I regard you as my friend that I confront you in public. Otherwise, wouldn't it be easier to attack your daughter secretly and search her soul directly?" The Jing deity's words were true. He didn't want to ruin their friendship of many years. So, he confronted the Jing deity in front of the crane deity to show that he didn't use private punishment. Unfortunately, the crane deity's love for He Xianran was far more than the Jing deity's indifferent feelings for his son. Even though he knew the Jing deity's good intentions, he was determined to stop him. Because he knew the truth. Dulong dared to hide it from anyone in the family. How could he hide it from him? He had already secretly reported it to him. He knew about it. Once He Xianran's soul was searched and the Jing deity learned the truth, He Xianran could only apologize with death, and this was absolutely not what he wanted to see. Our friendship of so many years is not as good as a mortal who tried to sow discord, the crane deity said. The Jing deity was extremely disappointed. The crane deity's attitude only made him more certain. He vaguely guessed that the crane deity might also know the truth about Jing Bai's death. This infuriated the Jing deity. An old friend of many years treated him like this. How could he not be disappointed? Anger rose in the Jing deity's heart. He said coldly, "It seems there must be some secret behind my son's death. If so, don't blame me for searching your soul." The crane deity shouted, "How dare you?" The Jing deity sneered, "Do you think I'm afraid of you?" The two deities released their divine energy gradually. All of a sudden, the whole Star River was turned upside down. All the ships on the Star River, including the battleships, were on the verge of collapse. Suyu was shocked. Was this the collision of deities? A wisp of their aura was so powerful. If they really fought, a cavern world might be smashed into pieces. Seeing the two deities were about to fight, Suyu said, "Jing deity, please calm down." The Jing deity glanced at him. After all, Suyu had told him some of the truth. He didn't ignore it. He said, "What do you want to say?" Jing deity, in the Great Eastern Alliance, only when 100 deities are united can there be a supreme sage of our Great Eastern Alliance. Now that two great deities are fighting, not only is it useless, but it has also caused the 100 Territories Alliance to be torn apart. It has also become a joke to the forces outside the galaxy. The crowd rolled their eyes and stared at Suyu angrily. "How dare you say such words? Weren't you the one who started the fight between the two deities? After stirring up trouble, you are trying to mediate? How could the Jing deity not know? So what if he defeated the crane deity? It was meaningless. All he wanted was to seek justice for his son, not to fight with the crane deity. However, with the crane deity in the way, it was impossible for him to seek justice for his son. Chapter 1138. However, Suyu said, "Jing deity, you are wrong. There is no evidence to prove that Jing Bai was killed by He Xianran." What? Everyone was dumbfounded again. Didn't he instigate the Jing deity? Why did he speak up for the crane deity's family? When the Jing deity was about to lose his temper, Suyu continued, "In my opinion, the conflict between the two deities is only because of the lack of evidence. If Jing deity can find evidence to prove that Jing Bai was killed by He Xianran, can you give the Jing deity a fair explanation?" The crane deity stared at Suyu angrily. "Isn't it all because of you?" However, Suyu's words gave him a way out. He didn't want to fight with the Jing deity because he was no match for him. After pondering for a while, the crane deity said, "Of course. If there is evidence to prove that my daughter did it, I will kill her for justice." His words sounded dignified. If there was really evidence, it would not be his turn to take action. There would be other deities who would destroy crane deity. According to the rules of the 100 deities, those who killed the descendants of deities without permission would be killed without mercy, regardless of their identities. If the evidence was found, He Xianran would be killed, and the crane deity couldn't save her. Therefore, he said it confidently. Anyway, all the witnesses had been destroyed. Where was the evidence? Suyu nodded his head and said to the Jing deity, "Jing deity, what do you think?" The Jing deity was in a dilemma. He snorted coldly, "Fine, crane deity, remember what you said? If you still dare to cover up for her after you find evidence, don't blame me for being ruthless." Everyone heaved a sigh of relief. The imminent war between deities had finally been resolved. If the deities really started a war, no one knew what would happen to the continent of the God Realm Alliance. However, none of them could survive. For the sake of the alliance, the two deities put aside their personal grudges and disregarded past misunderstandings. "I admire you for your righteousness. On behalf of the people of the God Realm, I express my heartfelt gratitude to the two deities, Su Yu said in a sonorous and powerful voice. Although the crane deity and the Jing deity didn't lack the compliments of mortals, even the deities would be happy to hear their embarrassing act of borrowing a donkey's power. Then, Su Yu changed his tone. Next, between the two gods, we need an impartial investigator to fully investigate this case. I am not talented, but I am willing to investigate this case on behalf of the two deities. Su Yu's sudden turn of events shocked everyone. What? Investigating on behalf of two gods? Why did I choose you? What was the use of the Sunluo law enforcement team? Even without them, there were plenty of gods in the divine territory. Why couldn't they invite a fair god to investigate the case on their behalf? Who do you think you are? The members of the crane deity's family were infuriated after hearing that. The crane deity and the Jing deity glanced at him indifferently. Clearly, they didn't think much of it either. At this point, Su Yu was no longer of any use to the Jing deity. The Jing deity could send someone he trusted to investigate, and Su Yu had nothing to do with it anymore. Moreover, the Jing deity wouldn't interfere much with how the crane deity was going to deal with Su Yu. However, Su Yu said again, "Two deities, please consider it carefully. Only you and I know what happened here. Apart from us, no one else knows about it. If you ask an outsider to investigate this case and find out Miss He Xianran is the culprit, wouldn't it ruin the reputation of the crane deity? Similarly, the Jing deity's son was killed by the daughter of his old friend. If this incident is spread out, it will be detrimental to the Jing deity's reputation. Therefore, it is not appropriate for an outsider to investigate this case." What? The crane deity and the Jing deity were stunned. Many unfavorable factors occurred to them instantly. It was more than just the impact on their reputation. If this incident was spread out, they would be laughed at by other deities even if they wanted to continue their friendship due to the public opinion and pressure of the outside world. Indeed, this incident couldn't be spread out. They were the only people who knew about it. In the future, the crane deity would deal with He Xianran secretly to give the Jing deity an explanation. In this way, they could maintain their relationship on the surface. If this incident was made public, they would have to break off their relationship even if they didn't want to, just like today when they had to fight with each other on the spot. Therefore, they reconsidered Su Yu's words. Glancing around, they found there were 4 forces. If they asked the crane deity's family to investigate, wouldn't it be like catching a thief? The Jing deity wouldn't agree. As outsiders, the young master and servants of the All-Access Chamber of Commerce couldn't be allowed to participate in the investigation. Otherwise, the incident would spread out faster. The Jing deity was alone. If he investigated in person, it would cause a great commotion. It would be difficult for it not to be spread out. In the end, there was only Su Yu's faction. He was an outsider who didn't belong to either faction. Besides, this incident was closely related to him. Among all the people present, he was the only one who was suitable. The Jing deity changed his mind. It would be beneficial for him to find the evidence. If he couldn't find it, there would be no harm. It would be more suitable for Su Yu to handle the case than the rest of the people present. After pondering for a while, he nodded his head in agreement. "Fine. I grant you the privilege to handle the case. I hereby handle this case." The crane deity didn't want Su Yu to handle the case. This guy was smart. He was really worried that Su Yu would find some clues. However, there was no one more suitable than him. Even though he was reluctant, the crane deity had to admit it. "I agree to. I grant you the privilege to handle the case. I hereby handle this case." As soon as the two deities spoke, Su Yu turned from a kidnapper chased by the crane deity to an imperial envoy of the two deities. "Deities, I don't have a strong foundation in the god realm. I have no manpower, no wealth, and no influence. I'm afraid I will encounter some obstacles in handling this case," Su Yu said. "Is he asking for benefits? Is there anyone more shameless than you? You are a kidnapper, a shocking kidnapper who shocked the entire god realm. Do you have any self-awareness as a kidnapper? The people of the Crane deity's family stared at Su Yu with their teeth clenched. The Jing deity was not worried. Instead, he was delighted. He gave Su Yu a token that was flowing with divine energy. This is my personal token. Seeing this token is like seeing a god. The Jing deity's cavern world, including the law enforcers, all the manpower, financial resources, material resources, and influences are all under your command. As long as you find the real murderer as soon as possible. It was precisely because Su Yu only used his people that the Jing deity could see what Su Yu did at a glance and not be deceived. Su Yu took the token and said sincerely, "As you wish." Then, he turned around and looked at the Crane deity. The Crane deity was disgusted. "You came here to investigate my daughter, and you still want me to give you benefits?" Although he was disgusted, he had to swallow it. Then, he said with a faint smile, "This is my personal token. Seeing this token is like seeing a god, and its effect is the same as the Jing deities. You can use everything in the Crane deity's cavern world. Nobody can stop you. Crane deity, you are so righteous. I admire you." Su Yu took the token. The Crane deity's muscles twitched. Then, he exchanged a look with the Jing deity and left in the starry sky. All of a sudden, the Star River fell silent. Only the sound of Su Yu playing with the two tokens echoed in the vast Milky Way. The Crane deity left. The people of the Crane deity's family also left. "What? You said the kidnapper is still there?" *T. He is the imperial envoy appointed by the two deities. "What? You said He Xianran is still in his hands?" "Nonsense. She is a suspect, and she is cooperating with the imperial envoy to prove her innocence." The people of the Crane deity's family left in the small divine bone ship with anger in their stomach. They were still in a daze. There were too many twists and turns today which made them dizzy. They couldn't figure out how Su Yu had turned from an earth-shattering kidnapper who kidnapped the descendants of the deities into an imperial envoy of the deities. Oh, one of the deities appointed by the two deities was the Crane deity himself. The small divine bone ship was also heading back to the continent. Yang Tai's face turned pale. After a while, he said with a weird smile, "What a good plan! What a flawless plan!" When he thought Su Yu was brave but not astute, Su Yu played with the deity's family. When he thought Su Yu was just playing with them, Su Yu provoked a war between the two deities. When he thought Su Yu was driving the tiger to swallow the wolf, Su Yu showed his claws and fangs and killed the two deities. Then, Su Yu forced the Jing deity to give him an important task. The Crane deity didn't only give up the crime of kidnapping, but was also forced to give him an important task. From the very beginning, he didn't want to escape. From the very beginning, he didn't plan to kill the small fishes and shrimps of the Crane deity's family, but the two deities. The words and the plots he had prepared were not improvised. They had been planned for a long time. Su Yu became the imperial envoy of the two deities from a kidnapper who was hated by all deities in the god realm. Now, he had the supreme divine order in his hand, which was above all living beings. Yang Tai took a deep breath. His heart was trembling a bit. Apart from the interconnected plots, Su Yu's bold and unconstrained plan, which even dared to plot against the deities, was beyond Yang Tai's imagination. Yang Tai, who considered himself to be extremely smart, couldn't help but feel a chill in his heart. "We'd better not make this man our enemy," Yang Tai said with a heavy heart after a long silence. On the battleship, Mo Tianxian, Jian Wuxing, and the Ghost Clan's great emperor were all stunned. They did follow Su Yu's order step by step. However, they didn't expect things would develop to this stage. Being able to successfully escape was already their greatest hope. As a result, Su Yu not only got rid of the crime of kidnapping, but also gained a foothold in the Great Eastern Alliance. No, it was more than a foothold. It was like the sun at high noon. In the Crane deity's cavern world and the Jing deity's cavern world, once the token appeared, all living beings would worship it as if it was a deity. Even in other god realms, the imperial envoy, who had something in common with the two deities, had a high status. Except for the deities and the descendants of the deities, nobody dared to offend him. In an instant, Su Yu turned from an insignificant outsider into an influential figure in the God Realm Alliance. Looking at Su Yu, everyone felt their blood was boiling. The ups and downs were so exciting. Emo Tianxuan's eyes were full of appreciation. She didn't quarrel with Su Yu. Congratulations! You have a place in the Great Eastern Alliance. The people of Jiuzhou will definitely cheer for you. Su Yu said, "Thank you." Chapter 1139. Su Yu nodded and said sincerely, "Thank you, Palace Master, for taking care of me all this time." Emo Tianxuan's face turned slightly red. In fact, she had always suspected that Su Yu was an otherworldly person with an unknown origin who coveted the Jiuzhou cavern world. Therefore, she was always on guard against him. Speaking of helping Su Yu, she felt ashamed. "Haha, Brother Su, I'll follow you. It's so interesting and exciting." The Ghost Prison's great emperor didn't have enough. Although he was used to seeing deities, now he experienced this with Su Yu from the perspective of an ordinary person. It was really exciting and exciting. Su Yu said, "Haha, the exciting part is yet to come." Looking at the sacred Kylin on his shoulder, Su Yu said, "I still have a more important Hongyuan that has not been completed. That will be more exciting." The Ghost Prison's great emperor's eyes lit up. Although Su Yu didn't reveal it, judging from Su Yu's courage, it must be an earth-shattering event. "Let's go, I'm going to go ashore." The Great Eastern Alliance was in an uproar in the past 2 months because of a shocking news that overturned their senses. Do you know? The great kidnapper who kidnapped the descendants of deities is no longer a kidnapper. What news? Did he get caught and become a prisoner on death row from a kidnapper? No. He turned over a new leaf. Kidnapping the descendants of deities is a capital crime. How could he turn over a new leaf? Are you kidding me? If so, the descendants of deities will be in danger in the future. Humph, 2 deities including the Crane deity said it in person. The Crane deity didn't pursue it anymore. What else can others do? What? 2 deities issued an order to pardon his sins? He was pardoned from a felon to a civilian? 2 points to correct you. First, the deities didn't issue an order, but manifested their divine bodies and pardoned him in person. Second, he was not pardoned as a civilian, but entrusted with important tasks. Holy **T. No way. Kidnapping the descendants of deities. Not only was he pardoned, but he was entrusted with important tasks? Did they enlist him as a law enforcement officer? This is incredible, isn't it? Hey! What's a law enforcement officer? He was now the representative of the 2 deities. With the divine order in his hand, he was in charge of the law enforcement team and the common people. Both cavern worlds were under his command. Anyone who disobeyed would be disrespectful to the gods. Right now, he is equivalent to a god of 2 domains. When the restaurant heard the news, it was deathly silent. Several wine cups fell to the ground and shattered. You're not joking, right? The 2 gods had given him the supreme token of the gods, the divine order? He became the spokesperson of the 2 gods? In the restaurant, even a strand of hair falling to the ground could be heard. Everyone pricked up their ears, listening to the story that sounded like a fairy tale. Being stared at by so many people, the burly man who spoke suddenly felt excited. He was usually an inconspicuous little warrior, but now he was being stared at by so many experts in the restaurant. A sense of pride welled up in his heart. Without hesitation, he drank up a bowl of wine and slapped the table heroically. You don't know that Lord Su is the reincarnation of a real dragon, and he has the 9 dragons' god soul. Kidnapping He Xianran was a capital crime. However, he performed the 9 dragons' god's skill, stirred up the star river, reversed the universe, and shattered the stars, which caused such a great disturbance, and attracted the arrival of the 2 deities. When the 2 deities saw the 9 dragons' god's soul, they concluded that Lord Su was a peerless genius chosen by the heavens. Not only did they pardon him, but they also gave him a divine order. Chapter 1140. When they arrived, the whole world had been occupied by the demons, destroyed and devoured. As Su Yu saw that day, out of the billions of creatures in the cavern world, only a few hundred returned. The law enforcement team led by Yang Tai had all perished in it. The abandoned cavern world was being devoured faster and faster. The Great Eastern Alliance had noticed this anomaly and was stepping up its defense. It had formulated some policies, including going to the vicinity of the Divine Doctor's place to inquire about the situation of the demonic dimension. However, every time the whole army was annihilated. Even a prospective deity was buried in it. The Great Eastern Alliance was in danger, and it was not a peaceful world as it appeared. Dealing with the demons is the most important thing. Besides, I am under the orders of the 2 deities after all, and it is not my own influence. Once the tacit agreement between the 2 deities is broken one day, the divine order will be taken back, and I will be punished by the crane deity. I am afraid it is inevitable. The crane deity had suffered such a great loss. If he was in a good mood, he might spare Su Yu's life. If he was in a bad mood, or if the people of the crane deity's family were dissatisfied, he might kill Su Yu at any time. At that time, the Jing deity would probably not plead for mercy for Su Yu. Therefore, he had to strengthen his strength in a limited time. Su Yu hoped to hide his strength and bide his time, but he did not know that a storm was slowly approaching him. In the cavern world of the book deity, an elegant man with a jade-like face was lying under a tree, reading a book quietly. The book was very special, and the material of the book seemed to be made of some special material, which was very smooth and emitted a faint sense of gentleness. As he was reading, an old man with a dark face appeared like a ghost. He bent down and said respectfully, "Young master, the investigation has been completed." "Say it." The elegant man's slender and fair fingers gently turned the pages of the book. The dark-faced old man said, "According to my investigation in the cavern world of Jiuzhou, I unearthed the scene before and after Qin Kuo's murder with the help of the light-returning mirror. Please have a look, young master." The old man took out a jade-like mirror, which was very smooth. It was made of the bones of a deity, which contained the divine path of the deity when he was alive, and could detect the things in the past 5 years. Qin Kuo had only been murdered for a year, so it was easy for this mirror to recall the scene of his murder. An image appeared in the jade mirror. Qin Kuo stopped a silver-haired youth from killing the Central Prefecture's king. Originally, the silver-haired youth had put down his weapon, but when the Central Prefecture's king walked over, the youth suddenly attacked and killed the Central Prefecture's king with an arrow. After that, Qin Kuo attacked. In the end, his body was destroyed by Su Yu, and his soul was taken away by Su Yu. Every scene was extremely clear. The dark-faced old man did not move, waiting for the young master to speak. The young master glanced over and said, "Then what are we waiting for? Go and find out the whereabouts of that young man. Capture him and hand him over to that god." The dark-faced elder looked troubled. "He is in the Great Eastern Alliance." The young master raised his eyebrows slightly. "Oh? That would be even better? A creature from the 9 states has no foundation in the Great Eastern Alliance, so it is easy to kill him." However, the black-faced elder said awkwardly, "Young master, this person is not ordinary. I wonder if you have heard of his name before. His name is Su Yu. Do you find it familiar?" "Su Yu?" The young master raised his eyebrows. "Are you trying to say that he is the true dragon son of heaven that has been the talk of the town recently? The Su Yu that the Jing deity and the crane deity have bestowed with the divine order?" The dark-faced elder nodded slightly. Touching him would affect the whole situation. The book deity would not agree to make the Jing deity and the crane deity his enemy at the same time. The young master fell into deep thought. After a long while, he stood up and said, "The people are foolish. They really think that Su Yu is the true dragon son of heaven. I think there must be a secret that we do not know about. As long as we find out the secret, we can find out Su Yu's weakness. If we send someone to investigate, it will take a lot of time. That deity can't wait for too long. I will use the book deity's treasury." The book deity's treasury recorded everything in the world. It could easily detect many secrets of the continent that were not known to others. As the book deity, knowledge was his divine path. The dark-faced elder was delighted. If he used this item, he should be able to quickly deduce the cause and effect relationship. However, using the book deity's treasury once would consume a considerable amount of resources. It was enough to fill a small cavern world. The young master entered the study, and came back soon with a faint smile on his face. What an extremely intelligent person! The cause and effect relationship is so complicated that even the book deity's treasury could not deduce it. When he finished, he flicked his finger and a cluster of emerald green light shot between the dark-faced elder's brows, letting him know the details. After the dark-faced elder digested it, he looked surprised. Tsk, what a brilliant scheme! It's flawless. "Call Song Tie here," the young master said. The dark-faced elder said in surprise, "Young master, Song Tie has been poisoned and will not live for long." "Young master, have you decided to?" As he spoke, the dark-faced elder could not help but feel a chill run down his spine. The young master said placidly, "Just let him play his last role before he dies and hand him over to—" He began to ponder. The dark-faced elder said, "To the Jing deity, of course? As long as Song Tie tells the Jing deity the truth of Jing Bai's murder, the case will not need to be investigated, and the Jing deity will take back the divine order. I'm sure the crane deity will also take it back soon. By then, a little fox who can no longer use her power to intimidate others will be captured and killed. Who will care about it?" However, the young master shook his head lightly. "No, if Song Tie is handed over to the Jing deity, he will definitely be killed by the Jing deity, because the Jing deity is not willing to disclose the truth. If he is handed over to the crane deity, he will also be killed, and if he is handed over to Su Yu, he will be killed even more." The dark-faced elder said, "Then, who is suitable to hand him over to?" The young master said with a faint smile, "Of course, whoever hates Su Yu the most." "The people who hate Su Yu the most must be the people of the crane deity's family, right? Among them, the one who hates Su Yu the most should be He Xianran, right? However, if Song Tie is handed over to He Xianran will definitely kill him, and the ones who are most willing to disclose the truth are her two brothers. Once they hand over Song Tie and reveal the truth to the public, the matter of He Xianran killing the deity's descendant will be exposed, and nobody can save her. Getting rid of He Xianran and making Su Yu lose the divine order at the same time, these two brothers must be very willing. As for handing it over to one of the two brothers, of course, it will be the elder brother, He Jinghong. This person is resourceful, and ruthless enough. He is the most suitable person to handle this matter. Then go and do it. We just need to quietly wait for Su Yu to lose power, and then immediately capture him," the young master said lightly. The dark-faced elder nodded. "I will arrange for strong men to ambush around Su Yu's mansion. We must subdue him as soon as he is deprived of the divine order." The young master nodded. "Just in case, call on the 3 youths of the bamboo garden. They are all peak mortal fairies. Including you, there will be a total of 4 peak mortal fairies. It should be foolproof." "Yes." The dark-faced elder was delighted. When the 3 youths of the bamboo garden joined forces, their strength was extremely terrifying. They could kill a peak mortal fairy in a breath's time. At this moment, in Su Yu's mansion, several rather influential guests were welcomed. Yang Tai was among them. Su Yu kept a respectful distance from this young master of the all-access chamber of commerce. How could he hide the fact that he instructed the crane deity's family to pursue him from someone with ulterior motives? He also brought another guest with him, a woman with a gentle expression. Her appearance was not considered beautiful. She was soft and weak, and her personality was very tranquil. It was obvious that they had come to visit Su Yu, but this woman had been very quiet all along. Most of the time, she was just listening. Until now, Su Yu still did not know her name, let alone her identity. But judging from Yang Tai's attitude, her identity should not be too bad. Brother Su, I really did not expect that you would be entrusted with such an important task, Yang Tai said dryly. Su Yu nodded in response. In the past 2 months, countless talents from the God realm had visited Su Yu. Many of them had come to inquire about the truth. But how could Su Yu reveal his true relationship with the two deities? He had always given outsiders a vague answer. Su Yu had yet to understand the purpose of the two in front of him. He was a little impatient and was about to end the conversation when the woman finally spoke. Imperial Envoy Su, I have come to visit because I know that you are from Jojo. Our Sunluo law enforcing team has recently been investigating the death of law enforcer Qin Kwa in Jojo. You are from Jojo, do you have any clues? Su Yu's heart thumped. So that was their purpose. Due to Su Yu's current identity, it was inconvenient to ask directly. Hence, he had been beating around the bush until now. If that was the case, the delicate woman in front of him was also from the Sunluo law enforcing team? He just did not know what her ranking was. Su Yu's expression was calm as he revealed a look of pity. When I left Jojo, I did not see law enforcer Qin Kwa. However, I heard that they came to Jojo to hunt down the remnant soul of the demonic god of withered bones. Could it be related to that demonic creature? The delicate woman shook her head. Probably not. The remnant soul of the demonic god of withered bones has already been captured by Mengku. Qin Kwa was not killed by him. According to my speculation, it should be the doing of a peak mortal fairy. May I ask if Imperial Envoy Su has any information about the strong men of Jojo? She had no other choice but to look for Su Yu. Jojo had been emptied, and the creatures of Jojo were nowhere to be found. The only person who knew was Su Yu. Su Yu's heart skipped a beat. In a low voice, he said, "To tell you the truth, Jojo does have 2 beings who are no weaker than peak mortal fairies, and both of them are demons." The delicate woman and Yang Tai's eyes flashed. 2 demons with peak mortal fairies? If that was the case, how could a declining world like the cavern world of Jojo resist them? Where are the 2 demonic creatures? The delicate woman asked hurriedly. Su Yu could not help but laugh. Was she really a member of the Sunluo law enforcing team? One of them was destroyed by the united people of Jojo. The other one survived and escaped to the Great Eastern Alliance. If anyone could kill law enforcer Qin Kwa, it could only be one of those 2 demonic creatures, Su Yu said. Chapter 1141. Thank you. I'll go back and put up a warrant. The delicate woman got up and left. She stopped at the door and left a communication jade pendant to Su Yu. If you think of anything else, just contact me. Oh, my name is Xing Yuanxin. Su Yu nodded subconsciously. Then his face froze and his heart thumped violently. Xing Yuanxin? The captain of the Sunluo law enforcing team, a legendary prospective deity. Su Yu felt a chill down his spine. Fortunately, he was calm and didn't let this prospective deity notice anything. Xing Yuanxin didn't feel strange about Su Yu's expression. She nodded apologetically with a red face and turned to leave. Yang Tai looked at Su Yu thoughtfully. Although the intelligence of the All-Access Chamber of Commerce didn't involve the Jojo Cavern world, from what he knew, before Su Yu boarded the ship, a Sunluo law enforcing team left in a hurry. It was impossible to say that there was no cause and effect. However, there was no evidence, so Yang Tai couldn't say much. Even if there was evidence. Thinking of Su Yu's meticulous mind, Yang Tai shook his head and gave up the idea of being an enemy. After they left, Su Yu quietly pondered. Su Yu, the evil god, and even the sacred Kylin didn't know about the killing of the law enforcer Qin Kwa. It shouldn't be leaked. How could he know that the evil god was right? The Great Eastern Alliance had some mysterious means and might be able to find out the truth. Now the young master of the book deity had secretly woven a giant net to put Su Yu to death. While Su Yu was pondering, a black shadow suddenly flashed outside the door. Su Yu's face changed. In the house, there were peak mortal fairies recruited from the crane deity's family. Who could sneak into his house without disturbing those mortal fairies? Surprised and suspicious, Su Yu opened the door and saw a note left at the door. He shook his sleeves and rolled it up in the air to prevent hidden weapons. When it was unfolded, a line of small words was revealed. After reading it, Su Yu's pupils shrank fiercely. His face changed several times, and he paced back and forth in the house. He Xianran, come in, Su Yu said after a long time. He Xianran was full of anger and came in reluctantly. However, when she saw Su Yu's serious face, she was moved. I have good news and bad news. Which one do you want to hear first? Su Yu said. He Xianran rolled her eyes. Good news. The good news is that I'm going to let you go. From now on, I won't restrict your freedom. You can leave now. Su Yu didn't seem to be joking. He Xianran was overjoyed, but she did not move. Her pretty eyes turned. Then, what's the bad news? Su Yu stared at He Xianran for a moment and said in a deep voice, The bad news is that I, the Imperial Envoy, will hunt you down to the ends of the earth. He Xianran sneered, What exactly do you want? Whoosh, take a look at it yourself. Su Yu threw the paper over to her. Filled with amazement, He Xianran opened it and took a look. Her facial expression suddenly changed, and she was filled with hatred and anger. Song Tie is actually still alive? He fell into the hands of my big brother? He Xianran was well aware of how her two brothers viewed her, the younger sister who was most favored by their father. They could not wait for her to die. Her second brother was still all right, but her eldest brother was always looking forward to her early death so that her father could make him the successor of the deity's position. Now that Song Tie had fallen into his hands, once he announced the news to the world, even the crane deity wouldn't be able to protect her. No wonder Su Yu asked her to start running, she was at death's door. If you choose to run, I can also take the opportunity to hunt you down, and then run away, far away from the divine crane cavern world. It's the best of both worlds, how about it? Su Yu said. Once He Xianran was convicted in this way, the crane deity would definitely vent his anger on Su Yu, and then he would die without a burial place. It would be better to take advantage of the fact that He Xianran had absconded to avoid punishment to hunt him down before the matter broke out. When the news broke out, Su Yu would have fled to somewhere unknown. Don't even think about it, He Xianran said angrily. How could she be willing to resign herself to death and let her brother have his way? Unexpectedly, not only was Su Yu not angry, but he revealed a faint smile instead. I am relieved that you can think that way. Upon hearing that, He Xianran showed a hint of delight. You have a plan? He Xianran was terrified of Su Yu's scheming ability from the bottom of her heart. But if he was an ally, it was simply a surprise. Now Su Yu and she were in the same boat, and neither of them was willing to let the news break out. Not a plan, but a set of detailed plans. Su Yu smiled slightly. He Xianran's eyes were full of joy. Tell me quickly, what do you need? I will do my best to help you. Su Yu hesitated for a long time before he said, This is a set of plans for you and for me. It is a way to solve the problem once and for all. If you can accept it, then we will start to execute it. If you can't accept it, just forget I said it. He Xianran said solemnly, I am about to die, what is there to hesitate about? Su Yu nodded slowly, and took out the overall plan for her to consult in detail. After listening, Xianran's face changed dramatically, and she was deathly pale. Trembling, she said, "You want me," Su Yu sighed. "Oh, forget it, the risk of this plan is too great, and it is not much lower than the risk of you and me escaping now." However, Xianran did not immediately refuse. After pondering for a long time, a cold light flashed in her phoenix eyes. "What do you think the probability of success is?" Su Yu pondered for a moment and said, "Less than 10%. 10% is not low. If it succeeds, there will be no more obstacles from now on." In the face of death, Xianran's desire to live erupted. Su Yu said, "If the identity of the person who threw the note can be confirmed, then the probability can reach more than 50%. I hope my guess is right." In the next 2 days, Su Yu finally left the mansion and walked around the crane deity's cavern world. His every move was being watched, and it could not be hidden from the observant people. However, no one would be surprised by Su Yu's behavior, especially for the people of the crane deity's family, and it was not strange at all, because Su Yu was shouldering the identity of the imperial envoy investigating a case. If he did not come out for a stroll, and pretended to investigate, how could he explain to the two deities? Only He Jinghong paid special attention to Su Yu's actions, and he paid attention to all the people Su Yu had contacted and said, no matter what. Although he had the divine order in his hand, this was the world of the crane deity's family after all, and Su Yu's every move could not escape their surveillance. After confirming that Su Yu did not do anything unusual, He Jinghong was relieved, and a trace of cold light flashed in his eyes from time to time. 2 days later, in the secret room, Xianran returned a token to Su Yu. "How's the preparation?" Su Yu asked. Xianran played with the ends of her hair charmingly, and sneered with a unique charm. "I'm waiting for my brother to kill me." Swoosh. Soon, a shriveled old man rushed in from outside the door, and his expression was extremely unpleasant. "Third miss, something big has happened." "What big thing?" Xianran pretended not to know, and looked at Su Yu. The opportunity to change fate had come. Dulong's face was full of cold sweat. "Third miss, something bad has happened. Boutier has been discovered, and he has something to report to the Sunluo law enforcing team. I got the news and immediately came to inform you." Xianran showed a trace of a cold smile, and opened the stone door anxiously, and her face changed greatly. "What? Isn't he missing? How is he still alive?" Dulong was so anxious that his forehead was full of sweat. "Miss, I don't know either. Logically, even if he is not dead, it is impossible for him to come to our crane deity's cavern world. Miss, think of a way to stop him. Once Boutier arrives at the Sunluo law enforcing team stationed here, everything will be too late." Xianran said, "I am imprisoned now, and I can't get away." Xianran looked at Su Yu with a troubled expression. Su Yu's face was solemn. "You and I are both in trouble now. I will go with you in the name of the imperial envoy. Boutier must be stopped." The two left the mansion immediately, looking extremely hurried. When they arrived at the station, they saw a few strangers carrying Boutier to the station of the Sunluo law enforcing team in the crane deity's cavern world. Boutier's face was pitch black, and he looked like he was about to die. Outside the Sunluo law enforcing team, there was a young girl who looked like a servant, patiently receiving them. "Lord Bu, may I ask what you are saying?" the servant asked. Boutier took a deep breath and said with difficulty, "I want to report Xianran. She killed Jingbai, killed the deity's heir. Please investigate immediately, Sunluo law enforcing team." The evidence had appeared, and it was in public, and in front of the Sunluo law enforcing team. Everything was over. Xianran trembled all over, and her expression changed again and again. Finally, she clenched her teeth, and suddenly attacked Su Yu, preparing to escape. However, Su Yu reacted very quickly, and immediately took out the divine order. Under the illumination of the divine light, Xianran trembled all over and fell to the ground. Su Yu took out the chain and said with a sigh, "So you really are the culprit, please cooperate with the investigation." When he finished, he carried her and brought her to the mansion of the Crane deity's family. Upon receiving the news, the Sunluo law enforcing team, who felt the matter was of great importance, also sent an important member of the Sunluo law enforcing team, Xiao Xian, to deal with it personally. The Crane deity was in the midst of training, and he was very concerned about Xianran's matter. He wanted to stay in this stalemate for a period of time, and when the situation calmed down and the matter was no longer a big deal, he would let it go. Anyway, the evidence had been destroyed and Xianran would be fine. Among his 3 children, Xianran was the one he was most willing to inherit the deity's position, and he did not want anything to happen to her. Right at this moment, He Jinghong's panicked voice came from outside the secret chamber. "Father, bad news. Boutier exposed my sister. The Sunluo law enforcing team is here." Upon hearing that, the Crane deity felt as if he had been struck by a thunderbolt. He turned around and asked calmly, "Where is Xianran? Did you inform her to escape?" Since the Sunluo law enforcing team had intervened, it meant that it could no longer be hidden in broad daylight. He only hoped that Xianran could escape quickly. "It's too late." That Su Yu, upon seeing the evidence, could no longer conceal it. In order to please the Jing deity, he made up his mind and captured his sister, who was about to escape, and has now been sent to my mansion, waiting for your decision, father. Chapter 1142. He thought a smart person like Su Yu should know how much he and the entire Crane deity's family wanted to kill him. If Xianran died, Su Yu would lose his value and would suffer the revenge of the entire family. But he actually did the exact opposite. "Father, please give the order. The Sunluo law enforcing team has found out that the evidence shown by Boutier is true. As long as you give the order, he will kill my sister in public." Hearing this, the Crane deity's eyes were full of hatred. How can I do it?" the Crane deity said in grief and indignation. He couldn't save Xianran at this point. He said disappointedly, "Let him handle it himself," and the Crane deity's eyes were filled with coldness. "Take back the divine order. Set up Xianran's memorial tablet. I will take his head and offer it to Xianran. Without Su Yu, this matter wouldn't have come to this." What was more hateful was that Su Yu captured Xianran to save himself. This hatred was absolutely irreconcilable. Outside the secret chamber, He Jinghong's indignant face was filled with ecstasy. As expected, everything was as expected. Handing over Boutier would be the death of both Xianran and Su Yu. With ecstasy, He Jinghong came to the outer yard and said to Xiao Xian with grief and helplessness, "The Crane deity has decreed that the Sunluo law enforcing team should handle this matter impartially. The Crane deity won't blame you." A hint of helplessness appeared on Xiao Xian's stern face. If it weren't for the Alliance Hall, he wouldn't have done this. Killing Xianran was the rule, but the Crane deity might not hate him. He had no other choice. Glancing at the people of the Crane deity's family and the outsiders who came to watch the show, he raised his voice and yelled, "Xianran killed a deity's descendant and should be beheaded according to the law. Xianran, do you plead guilty?" Xianran said sadly, "I didn't. How can I plead guilty?" What a joke. Who would plead guilty? He Jinghong sneered excitedly. "It's coming to an end." Xiao Xian glanced at Boutier. "The prisoner refuses to plead guilty. As the law enforcing team, I will extract your memory and show it to everyone. If so, the truth would be revealed." He Jinghong sneered inwardly. The outcome had been decided. However, He Jinghong's face suddenly stiffened when Boutier sighed and said, "Of course she won't admit to it, because she wasn't the one who killed Jing Bai." "What? Jing Bai wasn't killed by her?" Xiao Xian's face turned cold. Then what did you mean by exposing me earlier? Butier looked at He Jinghong with some fear and said hesitantly, "It was He Jinghong who forced me to lie. Otherwise, not only would he not give me the antidote, but he would also exterminate the bloodline I left in this world." What? He Jinghong, who was laughing coldly, looked as if he had been struck by lightning. He said in shock, "What nonsense are you talking about? When did I ever threaten you?" Butier said, "Then how do you explain this scene?" Butier took out a jade pendant and crushed it on the spot. There was no sound on the screen, but He Jinghong and a few of his trusted subordinates were standing in front of Butier's bed, discussing, their faces revealing cold smiles from time to time. No matter how one looked at it, there was a connection between He Jinghong and Butier. Suddenly, everyone came to a realization. With Boutier's own testimony, and the impression that was secretly recorded, who would believe that He Jinghong didn't frame He Xianran? He Jinghong couldn't defend himself. He was indeed plotting something, but there was no need for him to threaten him. Boutier had taken the initiative to expose He Xianran. He wasn't framing her at all. He was just taking advantage of the situation to bring Boutier to the front of the Sun Luo law enforcement team. Evil creature! A deafening roar came from the depths of the mansion. The crane deity was completely infuriated. He knew that He Jinghong indeed didn't threaten Boutier, but he found Boutier from somewhere, and asked Boutier to publicly announce the truth. This was blatantly defying his will, and he was framing He Xianran. Overwhelmed with rage, a beam of divine power destroyed countless pavilions and towers, shooting from the backyard. He Jinghong's face was deathly pale, and he fled in panic. "No, father," as his voice stopped abruptly, He Jinghong's chest was pierced through, and he was half dead. Then, a second beam of divine power shot over. It was going to kill He Jinghong directly. At that moment, Su Yu suddenly made a move, and quickly grabbed He Jinghong to dodge. He said hurriedly, "Crane deity, please calm down." The furious voice of the crane deity came from the backyard, but there was no more divine power shooting over. "I'm sorry for my incompetence in teaching my son," the crane deity said. Everyone could tell that the crane deity was chasing away his guests, and they left gloatingly, as if they had just watched another good show. Xiao Xian heaved a sigh of relief. Although he was displeased that He Jinghong dared to slander the Sun Luo law enforcement team, he gave up after seeing He Jinghong's half-dead state, and left. When the outsiders left, the crane deity's voice came. "He Xianran, Boutier, He Jinghong, He Rushu and Su Yu, come to my secret chamber." In the secret chamber, the crane deity stared at everyone present and said coldly, "Tell me, what's going on?" He Xianran thought for a moment and said, "Father, let me explain. Su Yu and I received a secret message from my second brother. My eldest brother found Boutier, and was going to let him expose me, so Su Yu and I decided to beat him at his own game. We pretended not to know anything, but secretly discussed with my second brother in advance. As long as he could retract his confession in public, I would give him the antidote, so he agreed. In this way, my worries would be resolved once and for all. The person who passed the note was none other than the seemingly honest and self-abased Hirushu. Although Su Yu was being watched, and could not get in touch with Boutier to pass the message to him, Hirushu, an insignificant character, was the best choice. He could persuade Boutier to retract his confession on the spot. The crane deity pondered for a moment. Indeed, after the incident today, no matter how Boutier exposed him in the future, the Sun Luo law enforcement team would consider whether he would slander them again. He Xianran could be said to have no worries after this incident. However, he stared at Su Yu. "It was your idea, wasn't it?" Su Yu said. "It was urgent, and I didn't have time to inform the crane deity, please forgive me." "Humph," He Xianran was saved, "but you almost killed He Jinghong." The crane deity's face was unfriendly. Now that He Xianran's worries were resolved, Su Yu could be eliminated. Su Yu said, "In this world, which parent would really kill their own child?" If the crane deity wanted to kill He Jinghong, did he need to use 2 rays of divine power? One was enough to annihilate him, but the first one only caused him serious injuries. It was obviously a show for the outsiders, hoping that someone could drag him away before the second attack. The crane deity's face was still full of murderous intent. He had no intention of accepting this favor. Even without Su Yu, there should be other people who could free He Jinghong. However, in the situation just now, apart from Su Yu, no one else understood the crane deity's meaning. Heartless, heartless, Su Yu branded the crane deity as such. However, the more the crane deity behaved this way, the more determined Su Yu became. Hand over the divine order. The crane deity almost did not conceal his murderous intent, and demanded the divine order directly. Su Yu was expressionless. He handed the crane deity's divine order to him, and now only the Jing deity's divine order was left in his hands. As long as he still had the divine order, Su Yu would still be the Jing deity's representative. If the crane deity wanted to kill Su Yu, he would have to think twice. "Crane deity, there's something I think you should know." Su Yu pointed at He Jinghong. "Don't you want to know who handed Boutier to him? Boutier has been missing for so long, why did he show up now? Is it possible that there's no mastermind behind this?" The crane deity squinted his eyes. He had thought of this too. He flicked his finger on He Jinghong's head and closed his eyes. After a short while, he opened his eyes abruptly and said coldly, "It's you, book deity." The person who gave He Jinghong Boutier was none other than the book deity's man. Although that person had concealed himself very well, how could he hide from a deity's eyes? Book deity? Su Yu's eyes turned. He had an intuition that this matter was aimed at him, but he had an excuse. He said gravely, "Crane deity, this book deity's intention has to be cautious." He didn't send him earlier or later, but he just had to strike when the crane deity and the Jing deity's relationship had stabilized? There must be more to it than meets the eye. He understood this even without Su Yu's explanation. "Xianran, I'll leave the family affairs to you for the time being. I have to make a trip to the Jing deity's cavern world." The crane deity pondered for a moment, and felt that this was a serious matter, and it was necessary to discuss this matter with the Jing deity face to face. In fact, Su Yu had been wondering what kind of friendship it was that the death of his son was not enough to tear them apart. The crane deity and the Jing deity were not merely good friends. However, as the crane deity left, Su Yu and He Xianran's eyes met, and a cold gleam flickered in their eyes.